Sanders taking a shot, got him in! Room service, touchdown! Hunter!
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Shadur, again a broken tackle, and he can walk in! Touchdown! Third of the first half for Cam Shadur.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
So now, obviously again, and Giddens, another huge hole. Giddens midfield and pushed out of bounds into Arizona State territory.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Carson Hansen in the backfield with Rocco Becht, who's finally going to go deep and got a man wide open. And on the way is Jalen Noel. Touchdown Cyclones on one play.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Fafita looking for T-Mac across the middle. T-Mac, give him another 6.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, a new week, 365 Sports in our studio. And I'm David Smoak with Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left, and we appreciate your time. If you don't mind, if you haven't already, if you're a subscriber of the show, great. If you're not, we'd love for you to be part of that and spread the word. Also, the like button when you have the chance to just click the like button. I just did. In fact, I will do that right now. I don't know if I'm allowed to like our own stuff. I hope that's the way you feel.
Yeah, you have to.
So it's Monday, and it's, of course, a new week, a new month in March, and March Madness, already some crazy endings in basketball, conference tournaments starting, still some regular season games to go. We have a lot to get to. In fact, Rob Douster, who's really good covering college basketball for the Field of 68, he'll join us at 3:40 on many things college basketball. But let's start with this, the news in the ACC. Now, you have to always be careful about jumping head first and all of a sudden the swimming pool does not have water in it. But Amanda Kristovich confirming the ACC is in the process of reaching a settlement with Florida State and Clemson. FSU board meeting set for tomorrow, that's Tuesday, to discuss the settlement. Story to come. The story is the deal would be made in exchange for the conference's revenue distribution structure. I already thought they've done some of this, but we'll get into this. And there are some that believe it's going to happen and some that are not so sure it is going to happen. And what it means if the ACC stabilizes, or does this mean that the clock is ticking, which probably has been the case for anything in college football when it comes to conferences anyway. Paul Catalina, what does this mean in your opinion?
What it means is that FSU and Clemson get pretty much what they want. Outside of getting out of the conference, which I think was goal number one, but the realistic goal was getting more money. So the more money happens in that there's a revenue-based distribution model that is now based on the highest ratings of the season. Those teams will get more money. So right now it's set up to benefit Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and I guess North Carolina, although I don't know if North Carolina's football ratings are really knocking the door down. But those three schools are brand name schools for football and have usually have the biggest ratings throughout the year, whether the teams are good or bad. It's that way in a lot of leagues. Michigan always had good ratings, even when they weren't what they were a year ago when national champions again. So they've gone through and decided that, look, we have the biggest ratings, we should get more money, so they're going to. The grant of rights has a bit of a shortening on the end of it, where now there's a lower fee to get out in 5 years or 6 years. And then the ACC gets to stabilize, and that's what they wanted ultimately in this. So it's not like anybody was a big jackass about this for 2 full years and now has to walk some of that back. But FSU and Clemson kind of get what they want here.
Now, that's if the ratings continue to be with them in the lead, which it will be.
The way that they're going to sell it to some of the partners or the teams is this year, actually, FSU and Clemson would not be the top ratings getter. It would actually be Georgia Tech, who at the beginning of the year had the highest rated game in week 0 over Florida State, and then at the end of the year had the hiest rated game
against Georgia.
Not to mention a nice one in there against Miami in the middle. But look, they're already starting to plow the road for Florida State and Clemson and Miami a little bit in their partnership with Notre Dame. They're going to play them more often too, which means their ratings will be higher just based on the fact that they'll be in that rotation more than Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, etc.
Craig.
Yeah, it means that the lawsuits are going to wrap up, so that's good. That you'll have less of the legal matters to worry about if you're the ACC, so long as this goes through the way it's expected to tomorrow. So all of the talk about settling is now on the doorstep, and it actually looks like they're going to settle, as most people predicted. The questions were just where and how and what all that would look like. But now we have a clear picture. What that looks like is basically that buyout number going down dramatically by the time 2030 rolls around. And why is that important? Because that's when a lot of the other conference deals come up. Like the Big 12, for example, like the Big 10. You also have the college football playoff that starts back up in 2031. So that now aligns with a nice, cleaner exit spot potentially for those schools. But it also gives you about 5 years to prepare for that. Now, we know like a year or two before the speculation will start to ramp up of like, hey, 2030's here, and that's when this is not as much of a penalty, and maybe this is when Florida State and Clemson jump out. But I think that's a conversation for like 3 years from now at this point. Like if you're going to do the daily, they're going to leave, it's just you're going to be doing that for like 5 years, guys. And I know some will probably be happy to do that, but it's going to be like 5 years of doing that. It's not like around the corner.
There's whole YouTube and Twitter accounts that tomorrow after 3 board meetings essentially will have nothing to do.
Perhaps, I don't know, but like this would seemingly calm the waters in regards to they're leaving for the SEC, they're joining up with the Big Ten, like whatever iteration of whatever speculation you've heard, that would seemingly calm down and go quite quiet for the foreseeable future, because nothing would probably be done until about 5 years from now. So that's what's notable to me. The big decrease obviously makes it easier for them to eventually still leave, so you're not getting rid of that storyline entirely. It's just a matter of it's going to be a lot longer than, hey, it's happening next year or in the next couple of years. It's not lining up like that.
It's the clock is ticking. For example, $200 million to leave in maybe, what was it, 29 or 30, whenever it is. And then after that year, it will drop to $100 million for a buyout. Remember, there was all sorts of, the numbers were extravagant.
Well, there's like $500 million if you were to do it all right now. That's what they weren't going to be able to do that, so they sued and like, hey, let's try to drop this number down and do like Oklahoma and Texas did, and you don't really go out with the number the way that it was originally structured. You whittle it down and you talk it out, and eventually you get to a number where you're happy. Well, that was clearly not going to happen here, because the ACC wasn't going to kill itself and just allow them to walk free on the cheap. So hence the lawsuits. And I think you still both get what you want, where you've got a little bit of stability now if you're the ACC for the foreseeable future. And if you're Florida State or a school like that, you can see a finish line that's not all the way in 2036 and is 10-plus years from now. So I think both sides win in that regard. You mentioned like the success and the winning initiatives that will pay out more money to the schools that bring in better TV ratings or win more. I think this is actually kind of interesting, because I feel like this is what everybody's going to have to ultimately go to, because if you want to talk Super League this, Super League that, I've made it very clear. My personal definition of a Super League does not include every single team in the Big Ten and the SEC. It does not. It does not include Vanderbilt. It does not include several other schools. It includes a lot of those schools. But my whole thing with calling it a Super League is for my definition at least, it's a little bit different. But at some point, I don't care how much money you're making. I don't care what you call yourself. I don't think Georgia wants to make the same amount of money as Arkansas or feels that they should. Mm-hmm. So something at some point is going to have to give there, where Alabama doesn't want to make the same money as South Carolina. And so I think this is the way that happens, is you have the success initiative, so their version of Florida State or Miami or Clemson or whoever does have their reasonings and their way to make more money, so that it's not just a flat across the board. So in that, I think is probably a pretty smart thing, and maybe something we see more of the leagues do moving forward.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Craig, because John Wilner said this about the Big Ten.
And this is about what you mentioned about Georgia and South Carolina, that this would be the model for the Big Ten in 2030s unless there's a Super League. No chance Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan share equally with the bottom tier in the next contract cycle.
Well, I hadn't seen that, so dap to John Wilner. We're on the same page here. But, yeah, that's immediately where my brain went, was that this is probably what we'll see. Yeah, why is Ohio State sharing the same exact amount of money with Rutgers? All due respect. So that's definitely what I take from this as well. But, yeah, it'll be a less financial penalty if Florida State were to leave in a few years, but it's going to be a few years. The revenue distribution thing's interesting, and now the lawsuits will seemingly end. So I think you love that, depending on who you are, and if you're somebody who loves the chaos, maybe you don't. But I think it's good news for the ACC. I think it's good news for those schools. Everybody sort of wins, but everybody knows this isn't quite over, in that we're going to revisit this. And especially as we get closer to 2030 and these new TV contracts, there will be major revisiting of it. But we just started 2025, so I think there is a little bit of a buffer here of 2 or 3 years where everybody can kind of just stop clinching up and can just go out and do what they do and then worry about the rest of it when the time gets closer.
But it does then create the possibility, because we've seen this before, that now Florida State, Clemson, they see what that end line is or what it is. It's not $500 or $600 million. It's $200 million. Then it drops to $100 million. And I see a lot of you in the chat room, well, it's $300 million. They might still push the envelope. Do this and still might push the envelope to try to see if they can get out any earlier, whatever that might be. I don't know. So there we are with that. We'll have, I'm working on like 5 people who cover the ACC. Matt Baker, Amanda, and others, to try to see if we can try to get them on, slip them on at some point in the 4 o'clock hour.
Well, and look, this is also the ransom that they can have to not have the Super League, right? So if you're in the Big Ten and want to make sure that Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State don't leave, then you pay the ransom. Right? Just like the ACC did. Craig, you said it perfectly. Wilner said it perfectly. This is now going to be the model, because they'll be like, well, I mean, if you don't, we'll just have a Super League, and then where are you guys going to be, right? And so that's what it'll be. And the SEC and Big Ten will do it. I'm very curious as to, here's the thing. The ACC, Big Ten, and SEC can do this. The Big 12 really can't, because what you're talking about is 50 years of television data that they're going to be able to go on with all these gigantic brands in these conferences, as where the Big 12 was the best of the rest, right? And they were all kind of in the middle. So they're not going to be able to be like, well, we at Kansas State have had a good run, so now we get this. Now, maybe they set up a model like that, but in the Big 12 sense, that would be more evenly distributed anyway, because that's the one that is more, flipping over year over year.
There's no brands in the Big 12. I mean, KU basketball, but hell, Baylor's won a national championship. Texas Tech's played for a national championship. Like, KU in basketball would be about the closest thing to having that level of powerhouse, but it's not so powerful in that you can walk around like you're Ohio State football, demanding more money from everybody else. I don't think you hold your weight necessarily so well that you can make those kinds of demands. So yeah, it's a much more even eye-to-eye looking conference. In the SEC, you have the handful that have been kind of carrying the way in football. You have those in the Big Ten and those in the ACC, obviously. Clemson and Florida State have been talking about this for the last year with this lawsuit. So I think they all have their top tier of historical, successful, and even modern-day programs, whereas, the Big 12 is much more eye-to-eye, particularly in football. Everybody's been pretty good to bad or whatever, and every point in between. Nobody's quite been elite for enough time to establish themselves as being different than anybody. So, I don't know where that would work out for them as a league. But for the other three, I mean, obviously it makes sense for the ACC. That's why they're doing it, to appease their big schools while they still can. And then, I think the Big Ten and the SEC, at some point, if you're Georgia football, like, why am I making the same as South Carolina or whatever? But to other people, I mean, before 2030, so we've got the 25 season, the 26 season, the 27 season, the 28 season, the 29 season. So after 5 more football seasons, then it looks like the price tag drops down to less than $100 million. So maybe Florida State flirts with that beforehand, but that's still 5 football seasons away. So they will get out much cheaper, but it's going to be a lot longer than some people were hoping for.
And maybe not necessarily what everyone thinks is numbers you're hearing about when it comes to getting out. Those are exit fees. This is David McKenzie. He's an attorney. He mentioned, I'll believe all these details when I see them. It smells of capitulation and legally problematic. Here is why. First, the ACC's concession signals weakness where none may exist. The so-called sovereign immunity defense is novel at best and frivolous. And then he went on to explain this as well. Remember, UT and Oklahoma had to kind of at least maneuver around this along with the Big 12. The idea the ACC's so-called exit fee could drop below $100 million suddenly makes it easier for Florida State, Clemson to leave is a red herring. The real obstacle has never been the exit fee. It's the grant of rights. Paying the exit fee only gets a school out of the conference. It does nothing to reclaim the media rights they signed away as long as the grant of rights remains enforceable, which could carry all the way through 2036. Now, that could be negotiated too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. I mean, that's for later on to worry about, quite frankly. I understand the lawyers getting their 2 cents in and making sense of it all as best they can, but I think that's a problem for another day that nobody's really worried about right now. And you're right, it's about the grant of rights ultimately, but there's a big difference in paying $400 million less for part of the problem. So if part of the problem is paying $500 million, but here pretty soon it'll be $100 million, I think you'll take the trade-off there, no matter what the grant of rights still says, because you're not paying $400 million extra dollars.
And the grant of rights is one of the things that was kind of an interesting, was to me the most interesting thing of that was the legal thing they were going to try to determine. Like, okay, no, we signed over the rights while you had us, but if you don't have us, you don't have
our rights if we're an ACC member, but if we're not in the ACC, you don't technically have our rights. Like that kind of trickery. Yeah,
that little whatever judge decides on that, and that might be covered in the settlement, though. Like, maybe, I wonder that might be covered in the settlement of what the grant of rights actually is. But he also goes on to say, like, this was capitulation, and the way they'll sell it is that, this year Georgia Tech is the one. So it could be you, Wake Forest. Just make sure you play Georgia and FSU and Notre Dame every year, and you'll get good ratings. Yeah, like that's where it will be. It does maybe incentivize programs like that to start scheduling some games that will get them better ratings. Perhaps.
Yeah, I think on the grant of rights, again, that'll be determined. There's a lot of, even that article of, like, we don't quite know what the real story is on the grant of rights, but that the figure drops down starting post-2030s noticeably, and to the point of the comment I made a second ago about going from like $500 million to $100 million. So there is a drop-off, but there's still questions, of course. I mean, we're getting the bare bones of this story. We don't know what all's been agreed to or arranged. Maybe it involves the grant of rights to a different degree than we even realize. Maybe that's still problematic for Florida State and Clemson. I don't know. But the idea that they were going to be out of the league in the next couple of years, I think, got stomped out today, barring just some comment that I don't see coming from my peripheral. This would shut down that, and everybody can go back to their business, and Florida State and Clemson and whoever else will make a little bit more money and be appeased for now, I suppose, although their fans will still not. I'm sure the Florida State boards are like pissed at this, even though it was probably the most likely outcome from the start of it.
I've read Message Board Geniuses several times today, and it's can't believe they did this.
Well, this was always the most logical outcome was the settling, and I know that there's been people leading them around to believe otherwise, but I'm sure they're not entirely thrilled by the idea, but it does appear just on the outside looking in as though you can take a deep breath, settle in, get cozy in the ACC for a little while longer, and then, let's revisit in 2029 when the contracts start to come up, because that will be a big time period. Like, whatever we're here, March of 2025, who the hell knows what 4 years from now looks like in college athletics? What did 4 years ago look like? And did we expect most, if not all, of that?
It was like calm waters.
But a lot has changed over 4 years, so you can only imagine how much changes over the next 4 years. Like, what's even going on in the world in 4 years from now? We have no idea. So, that'll be interesting when that time comes, but that time's going to have to wait a little while longer, it appears.
Florida State, back in February of 23, Matt Baker, who's now a part of theathletic.com, mentioned that Alford was pushing the ACC to change the way it gives money to teams. Contributes roughly 15% by his numbers, the ACC's media rights value because of strong ratings. All of what is on this screen was in February of 2023 when it started smoldering, and pretty much now it looks like it's going to end up being pretty much what they want. But yeah, you're right, Florida State still wanted even more leeway and freedom. The John Wilner tweet to me is the one that is amazing. About, hey, you think Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, whoever want to split the same revenue as Northwestern or maybe even Nebraska or whoever? Here's one of the things. The conferences who are now getting the most, just something to think about. It's great. You're a part of that conference. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, among others, you're protected. But you wonder if, hey, those same teams that you're aligned with now are not afraid to maybe do something like that similar, as you mentioned, Craig, in the future, if there ever becomes what is truly, whatever the number of teams it might be, a super conference.
Yeah, and there's some confusing reporting out there. That's why we need to learn more details. Like, I know somebody, I think it was Andy Staples, had something in the way of headline about now, once the settlement goes through, if you're an ACC school, you can pay like $200 million to leave or whatever. It's like, okay, I mean, if that's the case, that's not how I read it, but if that's the case, then by all means, pony up $200 million. There's like three of you that would actually be probably able to do that or that would even need to do that, but the majority of the league's not got any place to go, nor do I think they have $200 million on hand. So I'm sure there will be people that keep this alive, but I'm taking it until I see otherwise, as though this is something more of a settling down than it is hey, get ready, because now the gates are open, and now Florida State and Clemson can just buy their way out. So I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. I took this as a settling down, but I also know that's not what most people want to see. So
I want to know how much money, in the end, everybody spent on attorneys and lawyer fees. How much money did they end up, and in the end, did they get what they wanted, or did they end up with what they were going to have anyway? That would be interesting.
I don't think it was what they were going to have anyway if they hadn't sued. Like, this was getting to this outcome. I think that's what it was. So, yeah, billable hours won here, and we'll continue to win.
That's the most powerful entity in college sports is the lawyers. Yep, I mean, they're the ones that make all the money on this stupid stuff.
But if Florida State and Clemson hadn't decided to do this, if they would just been like, well, 2036, then, there would never be an answer for them. They just had to sit and wait for it. And, like, on the if you take away all the bluster out of Tallahassee, and because that's what 95% of it was, but you listen to what Michael Alford said, he basically said in 2023 what they were angling for was we should be getting more because our games are rated more. That's what he said. And whether you agree with that or not is your own personal thing, but that was their stance. Clemson clearly felt the same way. So they had a partner in that, and they probably had a couple other silent people that were supporting them a little bit and going, yeah, we can throw some money behind it and make sure that ratings are good. North Carolina, Miami. Yeah, they were probably like, yeah, we're for this. But at the end of it, they probably knew they weren't getting out of the ACC unless some sort of, silver bullet was found, in the mountains and mountains of paperwork that they were doing. There wasn't that. They came to this. So now there's options. And look, I think ultimately for everybody in the ACC, if you are going to be able to maybe go to market in 2031 a little bit better than you would have before, that could wind up being a good thing. Now, does it mean that in 2031, Florida State, Clemson, and others may leave? Maybe, but also is there a place for them to go even then, given how gigantic these conferences are? That's all to be seen, and that's all speculation. But for right now, it's good for everybody.
All right, so we've got a lot to get to, and that's one, and that was something that popped today, and we'll, of course, have more as it goes on today. And as I think you'll have many reports, and there'll still be reports about somebody wants to bolt away at some particular point. Congratulations to Houston. The men's basketball program, back-to-back Big 12 championships. They are a battering ram. They are, and Rob Dowster will join us at 3:40. Two teams in the Big 12 right now, with all due respect to the others, that appear as if you could do your bracket and feel like they're going to make the Final Four, and you never know because the tournament's crazy, but feel pretty good about it. If Texas Tech, in fact, is healthy and has all their players, they're a team the way they play too, with the win against Kansas on Saturday, where they have a chance to maybe give the Big 12 at least two legitimate teams that can get to the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's carrying their weight in basketball as you expected them to when they joined the conference. I mean, this is the big attraction with them. It was not the football program, and so they've been holding their end of the bargain up. You just hope now that it's followed up by a deep run and maybe even a national championship. I mean, that's ultimately what that league needs to really spread its wings, is not regular season accomplishments and, a thing here and there. They need some teams to go and really throw their weight around in the tournament. So you hope Houston will go and do that, but 17-1 and, arguably the best conference in America for the past couple of years, not this year. That would be the SEC on paper, but it's still a very strong conference, and to only lose one league game is mightily impressive. I mean, they ended up winning comfortably the league by 4 games over Texas Tech. So very impressive stuff by Kelvin Sampson. And, yeah, just now excited that March is starting to get underway and we'll start to see these conference tournaments and then the tournament itself. I mean, that's ultimately what pulls me in. I'm not a regular season sicko, but definitely a March Madness sicko. So I'm looking forward to it. And, yeah, I think Houston can make a run. I think Tech can make a run. I think Arizona can make a little bit of a run. A lot of it obviously depends on where you fall. Yep. It depends on where you fall in the bracket, but you feel great about Houston and Texas Tech certainly right now.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that Houston has won the conference.
No.
What I'm surprised about is that they were so dominant before they came in their conference that I thought, it's just going to be harder for them to win the Big 12.
They're going to lose 3 or 4 league games every year.
Yeah, they could lose 5 or 6, still win the conference. That hasn't happened. They're exactly as dominant as they were in the American in a better conference.
They won.
That's how good they were.
Yeah, they're 2 games up.
Yeah,
they've got the tiebreakers, even though they split with Tech. Tech is 4 back. And then, of course, Iowa State, Baylor. Tech is, right in second place. Last year, Houston won the conference by 2 games over Iowa State, 4 over Baylor, and also Texas Tech. So they have been very impressive with what they've done when it comes to their men's basketball program.
Yeah, I mean, forget winning the league by 4 games. It's they've lost 1 league game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
lost 1 league game.
And they lost their first 1 or 2 Big 12 games last season.
And then there was kind of like, we got that out of our system.
Yep.
Little 24-hour bug.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel better. Okay.
Because I think when they did that, I think a lot of people went, oh.
Yeah.
And then, of course.
It's harder, isn't it, Kelvin? No, not really.
No, it's about the same, actually.
No, not really at all.
The only difference is they win their games by slightly less points. That's it. They had some severe blowouts in the American their last year where they were winning by 25, 30 points a lot. That does not happen in the Big 12 every night. Now, it'll happen, but that's the only difference is instead of winning by 25 or 30, they win by 8.
Yeah, last year, their first conference game, they beat West Virginia badly. Then they lost to Iowa State, TCU back-to-back, and both were close games. They started at 1-2 and then went on a tremendous run. And until, I think, the Big 12 tournament when they lost to Iowa State. Here are a few football notes. Arizona set to hire veteran assistant Craig Niver, the school's new special teams coach. He, of course, has been at Coastal Carolina, been at Kentucky, SMU, at Texas, and also at Rice, and was nominated just not 24 but 23 as a part of the Broyles Award. He was a nominee for the best assistant coach in college football. Speaking of college football, Neil Brown, former West Virginia head coach, is on the radar to join Texas in a role on its staff with Steve Sarkisian, which would be a nice landing spot for Neil Brown to at least stay in the game. And not sure the role might be one of those analyst roles, but that's a note about Neil Brown.
Yeah, I like that every story that I've seen is just a role. There's like no specific role. It's not he's coaching running backs. It's just a role. So, yeah, I mean, wherever he lands, he'll be qualified, and I'm sure be pretty good at it. I think he's a good coach. I just don't think he was the right head coach for West Virginia after a certain point. And so stuff happens. You go to a different spot and get your mojo back. I think Texas, obviously, with all that they've got going in their favor at the moment, it's quite a nice landing spot. Go spend a few months in Austin with a team that's been to the playoff back-to-back years, got every want you could ever have fulfilled as a coach and just as somebody within the football program. And, yeah, go soak that up and get your like I said, your mojo back. I'm not sure how much the firing and moving on and kind of being jobless here the last few months has really worn on his confidence, but if it has, and I think going down to the ATX will be a good way to get that back and then get him back on the path to being a head coach again at some point in time.
The head coach at Texas went to Alabama to be a part of Nick Saban's staff to do what he has done when he was the head coach at Alabama. A lot of different people went down there to get right. I mean, like, get inside of a system, learn it, feel it, be a part of it, learn from the best, maybe the greatest college football coach of all time, and then all of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have then moved on to have other opportunities elsewhere.
So Sark is going to be the new, like, is he taking on
might be. I mean,
the Sabin,
the way they've got it going.
Coach recycling program?
I think Sabin brought on guys with, like, actual, like, off-field problems a lot, though, too. Yeah. Like, they were dealing with, like, other stuff, whereas Neil Brown, he just got fired. I mean, that was really – but, yeah, I mean, could Sark be that? Maybe. I need to see him bringing on more fired head coaches or guys who are dealing with stuff to give him that new title that Sabin had. Because Sabin, I mean, it was like everybody who got fired that was somewhat valuable ended up coaching underneath him, it felt like, there at some point or another. But, yeah, I mean, somebody's got to fill that void, right? So maybe it will be Steve Sarkisian, and you've got a program that's on par with Alabama and its ability to be able to do something like that. So, yeah, maybe Sark, especially with the fact that he's learned firsthand and how it affected him. Like, he wouldn't be here without Sabin, most likely. So
say that all the time.
If he can go be that guy for Neil Brown or whoever else, then I think he strikes me as the type of guy that would do that.
A guy named Lane Kiffin was a part of that rehabilitation tour. Mike Loxley from Maryland, who's now, now at Maryland, was a part of that too.
Lane didn't have any off-the-field problems other than being difficult.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Bill O'Brien, not really off the field, but there's a few others, but one of them was damn sure.
Hey, here's what Nick Saban did. If he took difficult coaches and he rehabbed their image. Because Bill O'Brien, difficult. Lane Kiffin.
Is that a clothing store?
Like a woman's clothing store. Lane Kiffin, difficult.
Yep.
But again, Bill O'Brien and Lane Kiffin have never done, have never had the problems that Sark had, really, that, like, personal demons and all that. They just were hard to work with.
Here's a note in this article that I just Googled it. Nick Saban waves his wand and suddenly everything is okay. Wart removal is how one former SEC staffer referred to it. Hugh Freeze has prostate cancer. It's treatable, and everything's going to be fine. You hope they will treat it. He's expected to make a full recovery. This hit close to me because of my oldest brother, Robert, and I've been through prostate cancer with a couple of cores and a biopsy that was positive. I sent Cole Kublik a note, and I said, listen, I know that Hugh Freeze doesn't give a damn who I am, but just tell him that I'm glad that he's going to get it looked at, going to get it treated, and good luck with him getting through the treatment for what is prostate cancer. So there's Auburn and head coach Hugh Freeze. That came down on Friday evening. We had Jamie Pollard on the show just a couple of weeks ago. How about this? Longest tenured athletics director in Iowa State history, 5-year contract extension through 2030, which is about the time when the next part of all the different timelines that Craig brought up earlier. Jamie Pollard is now the AD, a 5-year extension. He was just in Dublin, Ireland, of course, for that game with Kansas State and Iowa State, a little reconnaissance type visit.
Well, you're welcome, Jamie, for your appearances on our show, upping your value.
Yeah.
No, he's one of the
increases Q rating.
Yeah, he's one of the best in the business anyway, so I'm not surprised he's getting an extension. He's not afraid to speak his mind either.
Yeah, I mean, congrats to him, and I think they're in a good spot. Obviously, making the Big 12 championship game last year, falling short. You wonder if they'll be able to get over that hump, but they're in a good spot as far as being right there knocking on the door, and have been kind of hanging around on the front porch for a while. So you feel like just keep things sort of status quo and eventually kick that door down. But good to have the alignment at a university, as we've talked about so often, and how much that matters. So to have your athletic director in place for the foreseeable future is definitely a big part of that alignment. So I'm sure there's a lot of coaches happy about that news as well. And, that Ireland trip ought to be something else to start next year. And the fact they get like a bonus trip just to go scout it out, basically, one of the perks, certainly, of being an athletic director.
Wonder if they had any green
Guinness?
beer.
No, we do that here. Guinness is what they would have over there.
I saw somebody that was on that trip. They were tweeting out what they were having as far as enjoying their trip. By the way, Amanda Kristovich will join us tomorrow. Of course, FSU, the meeting's tomorrow with the board. And so she'll join us tomorrow in the first hour and have more updates on what we told you and what we started with today with the ACC, Florida State, Clemson, and everybody in that conference, hopefully moving on.
I reread whoever wrote that headline was just absolutely butchered it that I brought up earlier. I mean, it still emphasized the whole, at a certain point it drops after 20, 30 to 100 million. But the way it was worded was like, you could pay 200 now and get out if it, I don't know. It was very confusing, but it just struck me as one of those that like, no, this isn't quite over yet, because I don't think there's probably people that want it to be over, quite frankly. They hope that there's like a loophole so that you can keep talking about it for 4 more years, but it does seem pretty clear-cut, and so even still there is, I guess, some headline butchering that leads to like not quite knowing maybe if that's the case, so I'm glad she'll be on tomorrow to just make it clear-cut and black and white, and we'll all walk away smarter for it.
And have more information because of the meetings that are going on tomorrow to try to tie the bow. All right, we're going to go to Rob Doster, but one more story. Jimmy Johnson, former University of Miami head coach, Oklahoma State. He was at many different places as an assistant coach, too, before he went on to win Super Bowls with the Cowboys, announced his retirement. This is not a surprise because if you remember, there was this kind of a send-off for him during the football season on Fox, the show that they have on Sunday, announced his retirement. Actually, 31 years at Fox, part of the Super Bowls, winning those 2 against both the Buffalo Bills in 1992 and 1993. Jimmy Johnson turned out to be a major personality among many Hall of Famers that were on that are on that set even to this day. So Jimmy Johnson retires.
I've definitely picked up on him. He's not Lee Corso bad on television yet, as far as you see guys that are just getting older. But I've definitely, the last time I saw Jimmy this past football season was the first time in a while I'm like, damn, he looks like he's getting old, man.
He's 81. I mean, he's still spry.
No, for sure.
And I watched the clip with Colin Cowherd, which is the first time I've watched a Colin Cowherd clip in I don't know how long. But, I mean, because I love Jimmy, I was like, well, I'm going to watch this. And he said, look, 5 years ago I tried to do this, and they talked me out of it. Yep. And then 2 years ago I tried to do it again. They talked him out of it, essentially. And Cowherd said that in the building everybody knew it was coming. And then finally this year he was like, guys, I'm 81.
Yeah, no, I mean, he looks good for 81. Like, yeah. I doubt, based on what I've done in my life, that I lived to 81. But if I do, I hope I'm as adequate in mobility and talking and all that as Jimmy is at 81. But this is the first time I saw him, and I was like, yeah, he's getting older, and I wonder how much longer he does this. So the fact that he's
donate his scalp to science when he dies.
Yeah, the fact that he's out is not surprising.
He coached at Arkansas, of course, Pittsburgh, Oklahoma State, Miami. He was also at Wichita State, Iowa State. So a lot in Oklahoma. A lot of those schools that we cover quite a bit. Some of them that are still a part of the Big 12. All right, when we come back, Rob Doster, Field of 68. How many teams in men's basketball does he think can win a national title? What do you think that number is, if you want to put that up in the chat, of what number you think Rob says? He'll look at Houston, Tech, he had a note last night about Texas Tech and the run he thinks they can make if they get healthy, 100% healthy. Thoughts about KU, Baylor having disappointing years, all of that, plus, of course, a look at the SEC with an unbelievable list of great coaches and now highly ranked teams, too. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, used to be, need to be, and used to be. What I say used to be, as you get older, and it doesn't, I mean, it just happens. I say this a lot, and Dr. Petty even said, I think I like the way you use that as an analogy, but you could be fit, have great diet, you could be in what you feel like is really great shape and still have high blood pressure. Or you could have cholesterol issues, even with all the things you're doing, but because it happens. Same thing with testosterone levels. They can drop for various reasons, but sometimes it's because of father time. If you don't feel quite the same, your energy's not the same, you're not frisky, you don't have that like, let's get up and go. Dr. Petty can help you find out if that's because your testosterone level has dropped. And it probably has in some particular way. He will set you up with an appointment, take care of the appointment, get the blood work, that you the results. And if your testosterone level is too low, he could give you the option to get back into business. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be moving forward, and used to be at PettyClinicalOT.com.
Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, drive home a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab or Ram Lone Star Crew Cab, both with massive $15,000 off MSRP. Looking for unbeatable value? Drive home a Ram 1500 Tradesman Quad Cab starting at just $35,995 or upgrade to a Tradesman Crew Cab for only $37,995. These deals won't last long. Hurry to Allen Samuels today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Dowster, national men's basketball, college basketball analyst with us on 365 Sports, the field of 68. Just want to start with this, with Big 12, with Houston and what Kelvin Sampson's done. This is not like this is new. I mean, this guy's won everywhere he's been, but to go into the Big 12, Rob, which was such a dominant conference, and do what he's done, just your thoughts about the accomplishment of the Cougars.
He's been incredible, man. I don't think you can overstate the job that Kelvin Sampson has done at Houston. And I don't think people realize how good they are this year. Ever since Milos Uzan took a step forward, there was a point in time early in the season when he was still trying to figure out how can you, as a point guard, step into a role with a program that already has the culture that someone like Houston does. It already has the continuity, the pieces in place, the leadership already in within the locker room. I think he struggled a little bit finding a way to be able to step in there and be himself. And it took him a while to realize, like, hey, you know what? Sometimes the best thing for Houston basketball is for me to be a little bit selfish, which is a weird way for point guards to think. But once he got over that mental hurdle, he has been unbelievable and unstoppable. In the last 12 games, he's averaging 14 points and 4 assists. He's been playing at an All-American level in the last 6 weeks. And to me, Houston is closer to being in that Auburn-Duke tier than they are to everybody else that is kind of near the top and fighting for a 1 seed. I think Houston has a very, it's going to be hard for me not to have Auburn, Houston, and Duke in the Final Four when I fill out my bracket on Selection Sunday.
How many teams do you think entering the tournament? There's 300 and whatever amount of Division I teams, and of course all of 68 make it. But how many teams, barring somebody just getting on an insanity roll that you don't expect, do you think can win a national title this year?
I think it's probably about 8 would be what I think. Duke, Auburn, Houston, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama. I would have Texas Tech in that mix, and I do think at this point I'm getting close to the idea that Michigan State is a team that's going to be able to make a little bit of noise here in the tournament. But Smokey, I will say this. If you gave me Duke, Auburn, and Houston, I might take those 3 against the field at this point. I really do. We thought all season last year that we were headed towards an inevitable collision course that featured Purdue and UConn in the national championship game. And I feel like that's kind of where we're heading with Duke and Auburn at this point. You got an unstoppable force on one side, you got an immovable object on the other side, and at some point they're just going to collide. And honestly, in San Antonio, I would not be complaining about a national championship game between those two programs.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Auburn, how would you describe, and I remember they played Baylor recently, Alabama's played Baylor recently. They, of course, Alabama, Auburn, rivals, same conference. How do you describe playing against them? Against Houston, to me, it's like you're walking into a dog pound. And that sometimes we look at that and we forget there's a lot of talent. They got some great players. But how would you describe having to play Auburn?
I think you got to do a lot of prayer beforehand. I think you have to make sure that you shoot about as well as you possibly can. They at this point are. I just don't know how you beat them. Right. This is what I've kind of come down to, and I've talked with some coaches about this. This is how crazy it is. Right now, according to the sports books, Janai Broome is the heavy favorite to be the National Player of the Year this season, right? And I think the best way for you to have a chance to be able to beat Auburn is to take everybody else away. Take away Tahad Pettiford, take away Chaney Johnson, take away Chad Baker-Mazara, take away Miles Kelly, sell out on those guys, and do everything you can to have Auburn run their offense through their National Player of the Year in the post. I think the most inefficient thing that Auburn does offensively is throw the ball into Janai Broome in the post, because they're just good, as opposed to being unbelievable, elite, unstoppable, whatever. They are just good when they throw the ball into to Janai Broome in the post. That's where I'm at with Auburn. The best way to beat them is to let the National Player of the Year touch the ball every single time down the floor. And I think that about sums up what it's like having to play that team.
What and how did the SEC go from what was – that doesn't mean they didn't have good teams and teams that could play for a national title, but they're now really deep. I mean, like, okay, yeah, Everyone's getting. They're paying people.
It's not just the money that the school is making. There's been a directive to invest resources from the conference into basketball, and it's paying for Nate Oates as a coach at Alabama, where he's getting like $4.5 million a year. It is paying Bruce Pearl enough that he can go to Auburn, win all these games, and not want to leave. It's about making sure that you get coaching talent like Rick Barnes after he left Texas, about making sure that someone like Florida is going to go spend the money they got to spend to be able to get a guy like Todd Golden there. And, you pay for the coaches, you get the talent in the program. And then beyond that, I think the thing that's underrated about the SEC is, I live up here in New Jersey, right? And around here, I live outside Philly. It's Eagles, it's Phillies, it's Sixers, it is Flyers. Like, you root for the team from the city, the professional team. But in the South, in Mississippi, if you're from Oxford, like, you're rooting for Ole Miss football, then you're rooting for Ole Miss basketball, then you're rooting for Ole Miss baseball. And you love everything Ole Miss. You love everything about that university. And if you could find a way to make those basketball programs that aren't necessarily the best programs in the sport, but are part of a university that this entire region will get behind, I think that people are realizing if you have some success, then you're going to have non-traditional basketball powers have home courts that make them elite. Like, Auburn has no basketball history, and they have the absolute best home court right now in the SEC, right? Tennessee is a football school, and on Saturday afternoon against Alabama, they had 23,000 people in that building. It's, if you can find a way to get those fans that love the school passionate about the basketball program because they are winning, then you're going to find a way to be able to make yourself a very, very, very good team. So it starts with the investment, it starts in the coaching, and then wins turn into this home court, which just creates this avalanche where we reach the point where the best money, the best fans, and the most profitable places to be a basketball program reside in the SEC right now.
Was it Auburn hiring Bruce Pearl that kickstarted everybody else then going out to find their coach? I mean, Rick Barnes, Tennessee had been around, but was that the linchpin or that triggered everything else?
I mean, it kind of happened at the same time that it was right around the same time that Rick Barnes went to Tennessee. A couple of years later, Alabama went and hired Nate Oates. Right around that same time, South Carolina hired Frank Martin, and he took them to a Final Four. So it was around 2014, 2015 when the SEC made, the commissioner was told the schools, you got to invest in this. You got to make an effort to be good at basketball, because there was a point in time when it was kind of a joke, right? Like, how are these SEC programs not better? You have all of this talent, you have all of this athleticism within the I guess the confines of where the SEC land is. And why aren't they better? Well, it's because all these other programs are willing to invest in it. Like, why would you go play at Ole Miss if they don't care about it? You're not going to have fans showing up. The coaches aren't there to kind of make you want to be better, right? But now that these places are investing in the coaching and in the travel and in trying to be good at this sport, it's now become the marquee place to go play college basketball.
Then you have Chris Beard, who gets fired at Texas, goes to Ole Miss. That you mentioned. Texas Tech, I saw your note. If they're healthy, and you talk about a bunch of rabid dogs, because those two, Houston and Tech, I mean, my goodness, the strong survive, and they split on each other's court. But what Grant McCaslin has done, who he has, Toppin, winning in Houston when Toppin was ejected, and then, of course, so was McCaslin. Your thoughts about Houston and Tech? Can either one of them, both of them, be a Final Four team?
Tech for sure, yeah. I think Houston, we talked about them, like, I think Houston is, I'd be very surprised if they're not in the Final Four. But Tech, when they get going offensively, I think that they are a credit to the ability of a coach to be able to identify the pieces that are going to fit in the way that he wants to play. JT Toppin was a huge name that came out of the portal, right? But he wasn't the kind of obvious surefire home run that they were bringing in. He's 6'9", 220 going into the Big 12, where if you're a 5 at 6'9", 220, like, you're pretty significantly undersized in that conference. And So he comes in, he gets a whole bunch of money. Like the reports were at 7 figures, 2 commas. And I think that bringing him in when he maybe had, it wasn't like Hunter Dickinson. It wasn't like Coleman Hall. There was some other bigger names out there, but they were able to get him to come in and fit him with a point guard that flew under the radar and Elijah Hawkins, who's this great facilitator. And then you have a whole bunch of shooters around him, and whether it's Kerwin Walton or Trance McMillan or Christian Anderson, who's been really impressive. I think Darian Williams in the role that he kind of plays as the connector of it all. It all fits. It all makes sense. It's all guys that are going to be able to do exactly what Grant McCasland wants those guys to do. And that's half the battle when it comes to transfers. It's not just the biggest name, the biggest budget. Anybody can spend money. Doesn't mean you're spending money well. And I don't know if anybody spent money better than Texas Tech did this offseason in the portal. They've done an incredible job of talent identification.
Rob Douster, Field of 68 with us. UConn, North Carolina, Kansas, Baylor, and I'm forgetting somebody else. All ranked in the top 10, and then all out of the top 25, the preseason top 10. Scott, did he misjudge his roster? Josh being hurt inside obviously hurt them. Roach has been hit and miss, had a huge game against Oklahoma State. They needed. What happened, you think, with Baylor?
I mean, I think a lot of it is one, they just haven't been able to consistently be healthy and have like all their 7 best guys available, right? Jeremy Roach has been in and out of the lineup. Josh has been in and out of the lineup. Langston Love's been in and out of the lineup. Jalen's missed some time. VJ's missed some time. I think part of it is just it's hard to build a level of continuity and get these guys to come together when they're not really together all that often, right? I think part of it is when you bring in Norchad Omier, you're banking on the ability to be absolutely elite offensively because he does have some limitations on the defensive end of the floor. Doesn't mean you can't win. Miami went to the Final Four with him as their 5-man, but they were also a sub-100 team in defensive efficiency with him as their 5-man. And they made it that far because they had 3 guards that were absolute killers, including Isaiah Wong, who was an All-American kind of a guy. And as good as Jeremy Roach is and has been, he hasn't been All-American level. And Robert Wright and VJ Edgecombe have both been really good in flashes, but they're freshmen, which means there's flashes where they look like freshmen. And I think that's just kind of it's not necessarily talent identification as much as you're relying on freshmen in roles that are maybe a little bit too big for what you would want out of a freshman. And you haven't been quite good enough offensively to make up for some of the limitations that you have on the defensive end of the floor with your guy. I mean, look, Norchad Omier is a 17-10 guy. Like he is one of the best low post producers in college basketball, and you can win with him there, but you have to be able to be elite offensively. And I think because of the issues with injuries and the issues with having freshmen be freshmen, it's been difficult for Baylor to reach that level on that end of the floor.
Did you see the Bill Self statement he released over the weekend? What were your I know they also had the drama and unfortunately the social media backlash to Mayo, his player after the loss to Tech, who's good. What was that about?
I think it was just as simple as Kansas fans have never experienced being mediocre before, and that a lot of that fallout is coming down on his guys. But I also think part of the problem is that he has a roster of guys that are really, really feeling the angst from the fan base. And he is trying to step in front of, all these fans are lobbing grenades at the players, and Bill Self is trying to step in front of it to take the brunt of that because he knows that these guys can't really handle it. You can see it with Zeke Mayo. It is all up here right now. They are making mistakes in crunch times of games that you would not expect high school teams to be making in crunch time of games. And I think that a lot of it is confidence. A lot of it is dealing with the mental space and the pressure that comes with being a Kansas basketball team and dealing with the struggles. And I don't think that this team is built for the level of criticism and the level of, media coverage that comes with being a Kansas basketball team right now. And I think he's just trying to get in the way of that to help alleviate some of the stress on the guys that are actually out there playing the game.
Couple more questions, Rob, if you don't mind. We knew about football with Oklahoma, Texas moving into the SEC, and Texas flashed they're where they are, and they hit that it peaked at just the right time to enter the conference. In basketball, Rodney Terry, they have a win against Kentucky, and then they'll get blown out by Georgia or South Carolina. What about the transition for Oklahoma and UT and the SEC? Has it gone worse than you thought or about what you thought? And, of course, the conference is 10, 12, 13 teams deep.
It's been about par for the course. I think that in an ideal world, Texas probably should be better than what they are. But given the way that this roster was built and some of the issues that Rodney Terry has as a coach, I don't think it's all that surprising that they struggled a little bit and the bottom kind of fell out of this thing. But Texas will be back. Texas will make if they end up making a change, I think they're going to get this hire right, and I expect Texas to end up being back. Oklahoma, this is kind of what they do. They're the opposite of what Arkansas is, right? They look great all the time in the non-conference, and then you get to January, February, and April, and the bottom falls out. They feel like they've done that like the last 3 seasons, whereas Arkansas under Muss typically would be horrible through January and then find a way to turn it on and end up making a run to like the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16. So I'm not that surprised with what's happening with Oklahoma. I think Texas will be better moving forward. This is just kind of a fluky year, I think.
All right, in the Big 12, a lot of BYU's having a nice run like they did in football at the end. But anyone on the hot seat, in your opinion, in the Big 12?
I think maybe just Bobby Hurley. I think that something might happen there. Like it feels like they've been kind of stuck in second gear for a while, and there's been smoke swirling around that for a couple of seasons now. But beyond that, I mean, there's been changes there recently, right? I don't think Colorado would make any sense to get rid of Tad Boyle, given the success that he's had recent years. Oklahoma State just changed. I think the other interesting one would be Cincinnati and what kind of happens there, right? Like that's a Cincinnati basketball program that has a level of pride and level of pedigree that expects being able to get to the dance at a certain point in 4 straight years without really getting all that close. I don't know if that's something that Cincinnati fans are going to be all that thrilled about.
Jerome Tang bloom off his rose?
Oh man. I still think that Tang is a hell of a coach. Yep. I think the last couple of years he's had a wake-up call that he might have caught lightning in a bottle a little bit with the way that the roster was built the year that they had Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel, right? He's tried to replicate that. He's tried to completely rebuild things in one spring and one summer, and that's a risky way to live. So they got money, they got support, they got backing. I just think they got to make better decisions on who they bring in and maybe try to maximize the idea of developing a level of culture there and a level of continuity. Because I think if you look at the teams that win at the highest level in the sport right now, there's continuity at Auburn. There was continuity at UConn the last couple of years, right? There's always continuity at Houston. And I think you have to be able to use the portal to plug gaps as needed, but find a way to be able to get a championship caliber core and build around that core and keep guys there for more than a year.
What's more pressure? Trying to figure out who's going to be in the Final Four, or dealing with all of what you do with your children and the bus and events and coaching, or watching them and
getting them off the bus, man. I got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, well, almost a 6-year-old, man, and getting them off the bus and refocused and getting homework done and getting them dressed and getting them ready. Like tonight we have our championship, the 9U basketball game. We have a baseball workout and we have a gymnastics class, and we got to get all of these kids fed. We got to get them changed. We got to get them to get their homework done and get them out the door in like the span of an hour and a half. It's hard, man, because I don't know if you know this about kids, but 9-year-olds, they don't really want to listen to what their parents got to tell them.
No, they don't. Hey, I've been there. Rob, thank you, buddy. Great stuff as always. Rob Douster, Field of 68 with me. David Smoak on 365 Sports. Yeah, how about that? Gymnastics, what did he say? Basketball, soccer, softball, whatever, and trying to mix that up as they get off the bus and have an hour and a half to get kids everywhere, get them fed, dressed, and much more. When we come back, we're going to have in this hour the UCF football schedule for 2025. We're down to the last 3 schools. UCF Utah and West Virginia. That'll be on Wednesday with West Virginia, Utah tomorrow. And then also, he's now the associate head coach at Nebraska. Phil Snow expected to join us here in this hour too. All of that and more, and this is 365 Sports. And coming up at the Baylor Club, Mike Mosel and his staff do a great job. The executive chefs they have, they cook really good food. Here are the dinner features they have, and a lot of times this goes from one week to the next. Give you enough time to plan. Smokehouse burgers on Tuesday. St. Louis pork ribs on Wednesday. Fried shrimp and catfish basket on Thursday. Steak and lobster Friday night, and then prime rib on Saturday. So you can set up your week if you want to on when you're going to go out to dinner and eat at a spectacular place inside McLean Stadium, the Baylor Club. They have $3 draft beers, $4 house liquor drinks, $5 house wine, $6 house cocktails also. Also, they even have a couple of special drinks. How about the April showers for $10? Western Sun Blueberry Vodka. Also, lemon juice starry garnished with lemon wedge and blueberries. That just sounds delicious as a special cocktail in the month coming up in April. But we'll discuss March. If you have a banquet, an anniversary, a dinner, a special type business meeting, a speaking engagement, symposium, something you need some space, they have it inside the Baylor Club, and they will also not only host you, set up the room, but also have great food available for you too. It's the Baylor Club. Mike Mosel, tell them you watch 365 Sports, and they have specials for you when it comes to the initiation fees or monthly dues. Mike Mosel and his staff, they do a wonderful job inside the Baylor Club just off of I-35 and the Brazos River in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Some of you asking about one of the newest logos behind us. North Star Funding Partners is the newest sponsor of 365 Sports. They're also a sponsor of our annual event, the banquet, Academic All-Stars, that will, of course, honor 20 elite student athletes from the greater Central Texas area. That is Kim Coulter's business, CEO of North Star Funding Partners, and we appreciate them for being a part of what we do. You'll see them rotate in the background. You also see right now, for example, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. Spider Grills is another one that rotates. We appreciate all of our sponsors, and thank you very much for being a part of what we do on 365 Sports. So North Star Funding Partners, we appreciate them. They've joined us as we start the month of March. Now, UCF 2025 schedule. Phil Snow, we're going to move him back. I'm not sure exactly how long. Said he could not start right now, so sometime hopefully here in the 4 o'clock hour. Craig Smoak, this is the 14th of the 16 teams inside of the Big 12. I said again yesterday, tomorrow will Utah, and on Wednesday, the last of the alphabetical order in West Virginia.
Yeah, so here's the night schedule for 2025, opening up with Jacksonville State at home on a Thursday night, August the 28th. North Carolina A&T on Saturday, and then wrapping up the non-con schedule with North Carolina, but after a bye week. So UCF with 2 games right out of the gates before they already get a bye week, which is interesting that you don't even get all 3 of your non-con games in, and already a Thursday game right out of the gates. Obviously, big changeover. Scott Frost taking back over. I'd imagine those crowds those first couple of weeks in Orlando will be red hot. Jacksonville State, North Carolina A&T, 2 teams you'll absolutely be 2-0 against, or we're already going to start the Scott Frost is on the hot seat bandwagon if he were to lose either 2 of those teams. So you don't give that much of a chance of happening. But that's the start is those 2 teams. So should be 2-0. Then you get that bye week, and then you get the big non-conference game against Bill Belichick in North Carolina. So whoever had Bill Belichick versus Scott Frost in the UCF North Carolina game on their bingo card, congratulations, because I don't know even what was the old Mad Libs? I don't even think Mad Libs would have come up with that combination, but here we are. So let's just stop there because that's the non-conference. 2 very winnable games in Jacksonville State, North Carolina A&T, a bye week, and then the big showdown with North Carolina.
And we don't we know about as much about North Carolina's team as we do about UCF's right now.
Right.
And let's not forget Jacksonville State, Charles Kelly, the new head coach there as
they
well.
They were 9-5 last year, but of course Rich Rod's now.
Rich Rod's gone. Charles Kelly is there. Charles Kelly, longtime assistant coach, so we'll see how that works out for him as a head coach. I think he mixed results as an assistant coach, but a good recruiter, that's for sure. And then North Carolina, they should be 2-0 heading into to play that game against North Carolina. And again, I can't tell you if they're going to match up well with North Carolina or who North Carolina matches up well with. I assume Max Johnson is going to come back and try and start. I don't know. I know that they've got the young quarterback from LSU that they. Or the guy that LSU tried to get, and they've got some, who knows what's going to happen at North Carolina. Omarion Hampton's gone. A bunch of their good players from last year are gone, and they weren't really that great last year. So we'll see. But, 2-1 is very reasonable, if not 3-0 to start.
Yep, so they do have 7 home games overall and 5 road contests. So we've seen in going through the Big 12 – there's been a 6-6. There's been an 8-4, but they are right there, kind of in the middle with the 7-5 that most teams typically had. And with North Carolina, a game that they've been scheduled to play a couple times previously, the school noted that that just didn't work out. There's cancellations and whatnot, but finally playing, and this will be the first ever matchup between UCF and North Carolina, and it will be at the Bounce House. So I would imagine that'll be a very lively atmosphere for that first-time ever matchup. So that's how you will close your non-conference. But 3-0 is absolutely possible on paper. But after that North Carolina game, you get into Big 12 conference play the following week. You travel to Kansas State. Then you turn around back at home, go a little home away, home away, home away, home away. The remainder of the schedule, every game the remainder of the way is home and away throughout the Big 12. So K-State away, Kansas at home, Cincinnati away, West Virginia at home. That is block 2. At K-State, KU at home, Cincinnati on the road, and West Virginia at home. That is their second block of 3 in this 2025 schedule.
Yeah, the every other game's like that. That's something that's always – but that's a dicey start to the conference right there with K-State, Kansas back-to-back. 2 teams. We know K-State should be really, really good, and then we expect Kansas to – with Jalen Daniels having a full offseason to be healthy to start what they've got a little retribution to where they need to get back in the mode after what happened to them last year.
Yeah, but and you've got 2 teams that are pretty established, another one with a new head coach, and then one that's kind of an interesting spot in Cincinnati. You get some games at home. I mean, that's a nice little change in that middle 6 there or 5. Of home and away. You get your sea legs, but I don't know much about what West Virginia is gonna be either. I think that maybe of the teams with the new coaches, they have the one that people expect them to maybe hit the ground running a little faster. But as far as I think Kansas and Kansas State are going to be tough games for UCF to win. And I think Cincinnati is going to be a tough game for them to win. They've got a lot of returning players there with the Bearcats. So.
Yeah, I mean, K-State I would chalk up as a loss right away on paper. Kansas remains to be seen. I'd also favor loss, though, although being at home, we'll see. We're not doing the win-loss thing right now. Right. Cincinnati, a familiar opponent. They played for over a decade straight now at this point. I think it's the 11th straight meeting between those 2 teams. So you talk about, like, rivalries and things like that. I mean, that's a team you're playing pretty much every year. You're 18-year-old freshman or whatever, you've been watching Cincinnati UCF play since you were 8 years old. So I don't know if there's enough bad blood there to really make that more than just a scheduling anomaly, but they will play them again as that streak continues on. So, traveling to Cincinnati and then West Virginia, we'll see where Rich Rod has them by middle of October. But KU's first trip to Orlando, so that's one I think you circle if you're Jayhawks fans about possibly making there. And so it's a fun little extra road trip now on the schedule for people every couple of years. Then you get back to it after the West Virginia home game, and it's 3 road games, 2 home games the rest of the way. And again, it continues on from their entire conference schedule, home away, home away, home away. So the final leg of the 2025 season for Scott Frost and company, the third part of the schedule starts on Saturday, November the 1st. And outside of the opener on Thursday night against Jacksonville State, every single game's a Saturday, so you don't have to worry about the random Friday on Fox broadcast or anything like that. So you get Baylor in Waco on Saturday, November the 1st. You'll return home to take on Houston. Then you make it 3 straight games against teams from Texas when you go out to Lubbock on November the 15th to play Texas Tech. Then come back home to play Oklahoma State. And then hit the road on Saturday, November the 29th for your final regular season game, which will be in Provo against the BYU Cougars. So that is how the season will wrap up. But a couple trips to Texas, first ever trip to McLean Stadium just across the street here to play Baylor. They've obviously had some tangles with Houston previously, but they'll be around the state of Texas. So if you want to drum up some goodwill recruiting-wise, you'll have a couple of opportunities to do that. You do miss out on playing TCU. That's the only of the Texas teams that you will not play. So they are among those opponents that you will not see, along with Utah and
BYU.
No, they played BYU the very last game. Colorado, you don't play. I'll drum up the whole list in my head. I should have done that before. I didn't know we were doing this, but BYU at the very end is how it closes out.
Well, let me ask you guys this: there were 8 teams last year with a losing record overall in the Big 12. West Virginia, the only one that actually was in a bowl game, and they lost their bowl game. They finished 6-7. UCF is about to play 6 of the 7 teams that had a losing record in the conference other than themselves. That would be 8. All of them are on their schedule except Utah. So they're playing the last 8 teams in the standings last year, overall records. They're playing every one of them except for Utah and themselves.
That's good.
I mean, we don't know from year to year in this conference, but I just realized that. West Virginia, Kansas, Cincinnati, Houston, Arizona, and Oklahoma State. So it appears as if that gives them a shot. And I don't know, of all the teams that were so disappointing, and a lot of them I just mentioned, Utah, horribly disappointing. Arizona, disappointing. Oklahoma State, I don't know if anyone saw like that coming. And yet UCF, to me, was incredibly disappointing. That's why Gus Malzahn's no longer there. He's at Florida State now helping Mike Norvell.
It wasn't because he was disappointing. It's because he just wanted to do a nice thing for his buddy.
Oh, yeah. He wanted the kindness of his heart to get the hell out of Orlando before they fired his ass.
How long of a trip is that from Orlando to Tallahassee?
3 hours.
Yeah, okay.
It's 3 hours.
Right.
So I've got it in my head now. Just let me run this down of who they don't play because I had some of them just off the top, but the full 6. So if you're playing 9 teams, that leaves 6 over. They don't play TCU. I already mentioned that. They don't play Colorado. They don't play Arizona State. They don't play Arizona. They don't play Utah. And they don't play Iowa State. So, yeah, you probably feel great that you're not playing Iowa State. Probably feel great you're not playing Arizona State. TCU, probably good to – I mean, if you're looking at just like what's the easiest path we can go, like, yeah, let's avoid TCU. They'll probably be pretty good. And then who knows with Colorado, who knows with Utah, who knows with Arizona, quite frankly. And we don't even know what the other 3 that I mentioned, but that is who they miss out on. TCU, Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, Iowa State.
I do think if you look at their schedule as a whole, they've got a great chance to get to 6 wins, especially with the early part of it. If you can go 3-0, if you can beat North Carolina – and you're 3-0, that means you've got to find 3 wins among the rest of the 9, and I think they can very well do that, on this schedule. Although that last part is really tough when you have Baylor, Tech, and BYU in it, and then wild cards in Houston and Oklahoma State. Houston especially, I think it's going to be a lot better than they were a year ago, and plus they were problematic even as a team that wasn't winning last year. They were a tough out in year 1 under Willie Fritz. They were tough to beat for everybody they played. Depending, it's hard, especially with, North Carolina being on their schedule is a very fair comparison because if you try to look up what the roster is on either of those teams, just who's back, it is nebulous right now as to what they're going to do. And I would expect both those schools to be kind of heavy spring portal schools and trying to get some guys who can come in and plug and play and start for you. So it's hard for me to say anything about UCF because I really, given who they're losing, look, R.J. Harvey's gone and Kobe Hudson is gone and they have a bunch of transfers that left because they wanted to play for Gus. All that gone. So it's hard for me to even get a gauge on what UCF is going to be in year 1.
That's the prettiest of all the graphics. That one there, for whatever reason, maybe I'm wrong. Garrett, you're the one that peeled those off, right? That one there has the prettiest overall color scheme. It looks like brighter. I like that one of all the, so far, 14, including today, that we have seen so far.
Yeah, that looks pretty nice. Whoever did that, kudos to them on drawing that up. I do want to add that West Virginia will be their homecoming game. Also, the space game against Houston, that'll be that big weekend out in Orlando. And then senior night, Oklahoma State, obviously the last home game there on November the 22nd. But those are just some of the themed games, and with the space game obviously is very unique. So that'll be a fun one there on November the 8th against the Cougs for space bragging rights. But, there's the schedule. Definitely feel like even with Jacksonville State having success last year, they just lost Rich Rodriguez. I wouldn't anticipate you feeling too threatened by the upset, but you never know. Like, that's how you could get this whole ordeal off on the wrong foot, is go lose to Jacksonville State in the first week. But you should be 2-0. The North Carolina game that can kind of set you up the rest of the way. But not knowing what we don't know and even knowing what we do, there's definitely – you can win 6 games on this schedule. I don't know if you should expect to. I don't know if you should say Scott Frost better win this or he sucks or whatever, but there's definitely 6 wins on this schedule if you can walk and chew gum at the same time and just do your job. But then again, that's asking a lot because it's college football and you never really know what teams are, especially in early March. But there's some definitely some interesting matchups here. I think Oklahoma State coming to Orlando ought to be fun. Texas Tech ought to be a good road trip. BYU will be a good road trip. Richard out of West Virginia for homecoming could be interesting. K-State on the road. So you got some good road options as well for the traveling UCF fan to go and enjoy and spread their wings in their still relatively new Big 12 conference.
One thing that they will not have at Jacksonville State, not only Rich Rod, but their quarterback is out. Tyler Huff played 6 years, played at Presbyterian College. Furman and Jacksonville State put up huge numbers in 3 or 4 of his years that he was playing college football. So they are, whoever they may, I don't even know if they've added somebody in the transfer portal, but that quarterback is not there any longer. I always have to double check. Wait a minute, how many years have they played?
We're not really doing breakdowns either.
No,
so
I know,
really
but
matter.
I'm talking about the starting quarterback of your opening game. Not only do you lose your head coach, but you lose your 6-year your starting quarterback too. So, all right, I still have not heard back yet on Phil Snow. We can 425. Let's break here, Garrett. We'll come back, see what I can do with Coach Snow. And then, if not, we have more to get to, including Shadur Sanders having Will Howard's back at the NFL Combine. Tragic news out of Pittsburgh with a player who was killed in a car accident and more. And this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs, whether you're looking to get into a new vehicle, pre-owned vehicle, get your car worked on. They've got the Richard Carr Love Your Truck Savings event going on right now, which means it's time to love your truck and SUV again. And right now, all 2024 cars and trucks are priced to move. You can save $9,000 on all 2024 Sierra SLT and SLE models in stock. Qualified non-GM owners can also save $4,500 on a new 2025 Buick Encore GX or $3,000 on a Buick Enclave. So variety of different vehicle types, models, and makes, and they are all there and available for you with thousands in savings off right now over at Richard Carr. They've got the Car and Driver Editor's Choice, the all-new Buick Envista in stock right now at Richard Carr, starting under $25,000 as well at $24,795. So whatever you're looking to do in terms of offers, they got them, thousands off, multiple vehicles of different types that you can choose from, and they are also locally owned, locally run, and have been a part of this Waco community for over 40 years. So do business with a dealership that's done business for a long time and given back to the community along the way. Deal with the people you can count on and go get yourself in a new ride. Take advantage of some great deals and great customer service right now over at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
365 Sports till 6 o'clock. We'll have Shireen Williams, who was at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, and her thoughts about that, plus much more. We'll have her today at 5 o'clock. Also, former Wake Forest, Baylor head coach Jim Grobe joins us tomorrow. He was on the College Football Playoff Committee for 3 years and no longer a part of it, so now he can talk. And we'll have him tomorrow to kind of go over a lot of what he learned and maybe give us a little bit more of an insight in the process itself. Shadur Sanders, I never saw this, and I guess it just popped up, and I saw it yesterday evening, where Will Howard was struggling hitting receivers during his passing drills. Shadur, I don't understand y'all hating on Will Howard. He just won a natty. It's hard to throw to wide receivers that you don't know. Everyone run routes differently. I saw some passes. I don't know who the receivers were. It doesn't matter to me. But there were some that were off quite a bit. But Will Howard, that's Shadur Sanders having his back at the NFL Combine.
Yeah, look, Will Howard didn't do well at the Combine, and he's not a guy who is going to be a Combine superstar anyway, but he just won the national title, so he can live off of that. I don't know how high he was going to get drafted anyway. I don't know. He would have had to have, a Mike Mamula-like Combine to shoot up the charts because you know what Will Howard is. So I know a lot of people get to watch it on TV and see that. But, my opinion didn't change about him after the Combine.
Yeah, I didn't pay particularly close attention to most of the Combine, but, Will Howard not having maybe such a great showing at various intervals is not surprising. I don't think of him as some, super elite number 1 overall type quarterback that's going to go to the Combine and just wow you. Now, how bad was it is he referring to? Like I said, I'm kind of in the dark on that, but I do think we kind of overvalue or overrate sometimes the NFL Network coverage we see, and I think scouts are far more worried about how he helped lead Ohio State to a national championship. Now, granted, it's also not easier to throw to receivers when they're not Jeremiah Smith and guys who are making incredible plays for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big believer in Will Howard as far as some great NFL quarterback. So this doesn't really do anything to change my mind one way or the other, him having a rough outing. But, it's classy of Shadur to stick up for the guy and to defend him a little bit, and he's got a big old fat natty ring on his hand that I don't think anybody in the comment sections have even probably seen in person, much less been able to earn, and he's probably got a pretty nice bank account, I would think, as well after the year at Ohio State. So, he'll have more opportunities to go and prove people wrong, but I'm not surprised if maybe he struggled. I'm actually probably most surprised with the fact that Shadur just randomly stuck his neck out there for him, but that's cool, and I saw plenty of headlines about, I guess it was Josina Anderson had a tweet out there about, who does she work for now? I see her randomly pop up, but it's not like when she was on ESPN constantly, but I see her every once in a while. And I saw one tweet from her over the weekend where she was talking about how I guess some of the people there in attendance on a staff were kind of talking bad about Shadur and that he was brash and arrogant and things like that, which
I don't know. It just says senior NFL insider.
Okay. Well, I mean, she was there, I guess, and so she overheard whatever she overheard and was passing along that I guess there were some people that didn't think as highly of Shadur, thought he was brash, which I don't think that comes as any sort of a surprise at all. But he is definitely being an old pal here in this case, so maybe that works in his favor a little bit for those who aren't overall enthralled with how he's perceived.
Terrible news for the Pittsburgh football team. Freshman Mason Alexander, who had just graduated from high school, enrolled at Pitt in January, was killed Saturday night in a car accident in his hometown of Fishers, Indiana. Pat Narduzzi received the call this morning that no parent, teacher, or coach ever wants to get the news of a sudden loss of a young and promising life. He was a top 300 recruit and was a passenger in a car, 2016 BMW that was driving south on Florida Road, and the driver of the car tried to pass a Toyota before, of course, swerving, avoiding a head-on collision, and then hitting a tree. And so, horrible news. Mason Alexander, who had just graduated from Hamilton High School, Southeastern High School, in Hamilton, in Fishers, Indiana, was killed.
So the way I read that is they were trying to pass right before going up near a hill. As the dumbest thing. I know somebody that died like that. They tried to do a U-turn on top of a hill. They were drunk, and somebody came rolling up, and they didn't know they were in the middle of the street pulling a U-turn because there was a hill. So they come up over the hill, and they hit the car and killed a local basketball star, basically, who was a couple of years older than me. And it was a big, that was our first, really reality check, I guess, for us as high school kids and the dangers of drunk driving and all those types of things. And, that's when inevitably it led to us getting the totaled car in our parking lot, and everybody had to come out, and you had the students, they had their faces painted as though they had died. And the whole ordeal stemmed from that incident that we learned about drunk driving. So that's immediately just brings back that memory when I see the trying to pass before Hillcrest. Yeah, get over the hill before you decide to make any moves is just what I'm saying there. Sober or whatever, but that's tragic. And, yeah, man, just it feels like that happens a lot. We talk about these 5 times a year or something, stories like this, which is far too much.
Yeah, it is. It is awful. And, again, Pat Narduzzi gets the call. Of course, you just never want those calls. I mean, anyone who's a parent or has been a parent, any call after, especially if you get a call from, for example, the police department or someone like that, it scares the living crap out of you. Now, Brett McMurphy, this is from Circus Sports. The odds to win the college football playoff. Not a surprise. Ohio State, Texas. They played, of course, in the semifinal game. Georgia, Oregon, Penn State. Here we go with all the names you expect. A&M is a little bit closer to that number than I thought, and then that's down quite a bit. Who's on that list that we see? I mean, stop it. Don't do the half. Go to about USC at 75-1 and up. Who's on that list that you think you're a little bit surprised they're even up that high?
Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up on my screen.
It's on the screen right here.
I know, I just can't.
Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, no surprise. Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Notre Dame, no surprise. Tennessee.
I think Clemson's a little bit too low in my opinion, but and you said too high.
Yeah, from USC above.
From USC above, too high. I think 35-1. I think Miami 45-1 is a little bit steep, a little bit too high for them. I think Florida should have better odds than Miami. I think Florida has a better roster top to bottom than they do. I think South Carolina has a better roster top to bottom than they do. Now, they both might have tougher schedules right now at the outset on paper than Miami might have looking at, but I think both those schools are better than them. I think Auburn at 60-1 is way too high. Even 60-1 is steep odds. What has Auburn done in the last decade to tell you that they're anywhere close to competing for even a
I don't care about the
title?
last decade, but the last 2 or 3 years.
The last two, under Hugh Freeze, what has happened where you're going to say, they're right there, and you go down. I mean, there's certain teams I think that are a little bit too low. But
Craig, I know you love these lists. You can't stand them.
I mean, I don't get anything out of them. I mean, I don't gamble, so it's the same list pretty much every year. There's just a few people that are interchanged, like in the second and third sections of it. But I mean, it's the usual suspects. I mean, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Penn. It's the same. That'll be the list in 2026. It'll be the list in 2027.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's just why I don't have a big reaction to these things. But I'm sure, if I gambled, I'd be like, man, Texas Tech at 175-1, but they're not winning the national championship, guys. Like, they're not going to win the Natty. So a lot of these are probably too high because they don't really have a realistic chance of winning the national championship. But, yeah, I do agree with Paul. I mean, just in what I am looking at here of like Florida maybe or South Carolina being higher than Miami. That's probably splitting hairs 50-1 to 45-1, but I'm sure in gambling terms that's significant. But again, that's not really my thing. So I could see where you switch around some teams like that. Auburn, sure, could seem like they're a bit high. I don't believe Jackson Arnold's leading them to a national championship in year number one, but and then all the stuff just swirling around with Freeze as well. That's an interesting team to watch that next year. But Arizona State 100-1, baby, leading the way for the Big 12. It's probably about right, but it's funny. They're just going to be the de facto favorite, even though they lost Scatterbo. Why? Because they won the league and nobody knows any better. So they're just automatically, they'll just carry it over, right? We voted them all last year, but they won the league last year, so now they're the favorite.
They're the hot topic. They're the hot flavor, and then you have Iowa State, Kansas State, eventually Tech, Baylor, KU, a bunch of Big 12 teams right there in the gut. BYU, Colorado, hell, I keep going. Utah.
Well, it's like half the nation's on that list right there. I mean, there's a bunch of teams on there. It's all the power teams. It's nearly every one of them, and then Boise is in there, but Tulane's in there as well with slightly higher odds. The UNLV also sneak in there. But, yes, that's majority of the teams, and I guess, Arizona State being number one makes sense. And then K-State 2, Texas Tech 3, Baylor, Kansas. I mean, that's probably BYU, Colorado. Yeah. Maybe Colorado's a bit high because of all they lose. But, I don't know.
You jumped over Iowa State, but I know there's a gem. That's enough of that one.
Yeah, I'll take I'll go put $100 at Circa on Wisconsin.
Sure.
And Luke Fickell at 500-1.
I mean, you're probably losing $100, but you could maybe make some money. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is a lot of these you're just burning $100 for like 3/4 of that actual list there. But yeah, I mean, if crazy things happen and you just happen to right team, right place, right year, right schedule or something, then maybe you make some money.
Do you think that I could like sneak into the TCU like coach's office and like whisper to Kaz Kazadi like, you know how bad Vegas thinks you are? 500-1, and then just all of a sudden TCU starts lifting weights like even madder men, and only doing protein shakes and just freaking out, and then all of a sudden TCU wins. I mean, I could affect it like that.
I bet. Where were they 2 years ago listed?
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm just telling you, Kaz Kazadi's crazy.
Yeah,
you've given that kind of motivation.
Yeah, but he can get distracted with former players on the sideline too. Keep him off of what's going on. Stormy cyclone. We have the same odds as Nebraska. That hurts. Sorry, Smokey. That means that Iowa State should not have the same odds. They should be higher than the Huskers.
I mean, as far as earning it, they should be.
I agree.
They should be higher. As far as who's actually been doing it, they should be higher. They played for a conference title last year, so they were far closer, and they bring back a lot of those guys. But I mean, Nebraska at 100-1. I mean, there's
Nebraska and Oklahoma are both 100-1. That's where they are now.
I mean, they're next to two teams who made the playoff, but I get it. Each year, you change over a little bit. But I mean, it's interesting to look at. Like I saw a comment, like the first comment to Brett's posting here is, "Hey, lay 30 on UCF, and you could win $30,000." But we all know that you're burning $30 because UCF is not winning the national championship next year. So that's why I see these lists, and I'm just kind of like, it's a fun exercise to think about. Like, what if I put $25 on Kansas to win the national championship? I got 200-1 odds, but I know I'm not winning that money back. I know I'm not, but it is fun for this time of year to kind of see what Vegas thinks, because more often than not, they do have a inside track on information that we don't all have. So it does kind of maybe alert you to like, ooh, that's interesting that team's a little bit higher than that team, or that team's getting a lot more benefit of the doubt than a lot of the projections are right now. So why is that? So maybe Vegas knows something about, why Miami should be above Florida and South Carolina that we're not privy to just yet.
What I wish I could find, and I can't yet, is where was Arizona State and the odds for last year? Because they probably
that's my whole
were,
point. Why are they the favorite? Based on what? Because their quarterback, okay, and they bring a lot of guys back, but I also feel like that's just like they're going to be number one in the poll in this summer. And guess who will be number? It'll be like Kansas State, and then and I get that because those are the best programs. But I also think I don't think there's a real way to really know in the Big 12, like honestly, because everybody was so wrong last year, and now it just feels like the exercise will be, well, Arizona State was good last year, so they'll be the top now, and they should be, and they probably will be. But I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of what's the right word? I don't know. I can't think of it. Not coattail riding, but I just think there's a lot of like rolling with the momentum and not as much of like just separating from the recent success, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
I just carry it over, and it doesn't carry over every year. Clearly, because look at last year. It didn't carry over at all the way people thought.
We're in the new era of where you can, go up and down. Florida State 150 to 1 right now. Last year they were up in like higher than A&M is. 35, like they're in the 25 to 1 range. People picked them in the top 10. Look, the rosters are changing in a way that are unpredictable. And when you and I think it's hard to gauge because you can lose 31 guys off a roster to graduation and a transfer, and then add 41 guys that you think are better, and it's not. Like it's a net negative because you just the transfer portal is not the same every year. You can't, it's not the grocery store where I know that when I go that my, the milk's going to be the same pretty much every time I get it as long as it's fresh. Eggo waffles are going to be the same every time I get it. It's not that. Like, I can't just go and be like, oh, I'm out of Eggos. Let me go buy some more Eggos. It's not the same. It's not the same.
I love Eggo waffles.
Yeah.
I don't have them maybe 8 times a year. I just, I'm going to stick them in the toaster.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Throw a little butter on there and slobber a bunch of Aunt Jemima syrup on top. I'm looking back. I'm trying to find 2024, but I can't.
You want me to change your life? PBJ with Eggo Ruffles.
No, I don't like peanut butter jelly. No.
You like an Uncrustable?
I like them, yeah, but not on waffles. I don't want them. Unlike the chicken and waffles thing, I'm not one of those guys either. But where were we when we the California,
Roscoe's.
right? Yeah.
Went to Roscoe's, yeah.
All right, still nothing back from Phil Snow, so that looks like we might have had that segment just nuked. He's probably trying to recruit talent to play for the defense.
You should stop bothering him.
I'm not.
I mean, for the sake of Nebraska altogether.
Listen.
I mean,
the 100 to 1, what the hell? Should be like 175 to 1, too. Bet on Florida State. Paxton says that.
Not to win the national title. I mean, no. If they win the national title next year, I might retire. I mean, like that would be the comeback of all comebacks.
No, it would be.
I mean, I may have to. Honestly, like when I say retire, I mean I may not just watch sports anymore because nothing would make me feel good as being 2-10 to a national champion and winning in the college football playoff. Like what could happen in my life sports-wise that would top that moment?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, like it'd just be like people would be like, "Hey, what do you think about Florida State this year?" Like, I'm sorry, I retired. I turned it off. I reached pinnacle joy, and now I'm into crocheting.
I gotta go ahead, Craig. You guys in?
I mean, I'd quit watching just for one more Oklahoma national championship because I don't feel like I'm going to see another one. I really don't. I mean, they got close like 8 times in the 2000s and didn't win a single time. Didn't win a single time after 2000. Lost to LSU, lost to USC, lost to Georgia, lost. So yeah, at this point, I'd before all hell breaks loose and this basically does just become NFL parody, I'd kill to see an Oklahoma national championship. But now they're in the SEC. I mean, it feels like it's harder than ever, even with the bigger playoff, to be able to do that because they went from being in a pool where it was just 2 great whites to being in a pool with about 9 of them. And it's just, even with more playoff spots than that, it's just hard to overcome that. So, yeah, I would give a lot to watch an Oklahoma national championship.
Yeah, I'd give up anything, nothing like anything, but to see Nebraska or the Washington NFL team, which is a lot closer now, although you never know, from year to year. By the way, I want to get into college basketball note for a second. Joe Lunardi released his latest bracketology. The SEC has 13 teams listed. 13. Now, here's the problem. One of them is Oklahoma. And, Paul, do you know how many wins Oklahoma has in the SEC in men's basketball in 16 games?
4.
4. They're 4-12 in the conference. Now, I understand the conference it's loaded. They are absolutely loaded. But 4-12, they've won 4 games against the top 25. That helps. But they're 4-12, and they are right now in the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think they should be. 2, I also think, though, this is a bit of an indictment on a conference like the ACC,
they got like 3, 4.
which is just lame after Duke this year. I'm sorry. I mean, Louisville's better. Like, that's good news for the ACC that one of their better basketball programs looks like they found their juice again, but they're not, national championship better. Clemson's not as good as they were a year ago. They're still good, but North Carolina is going to make the tournament more than likely. But have you watched North Carolina play? Like, do they inspire any kind of confidence in you? No. So I think that's part of it. But also, when we talk about expanding the tournament, when that comes out, well, instead of expanding the tournament, why don't we, put tougher criteria on a school like Oklahoma, and then when those one-bid leagues lose their conference title game, they can get the team that's in there that deserves to be in over maybe the team that upset them in the one game that matters their whole season.
The Big 12 has 8 teams that have a 500 or better record with 2 games to play, and all of them right now would be in the tournament, but nobody with just 4. I think you have to win. I don't care what conference you're in. If you rank enough teams in that conference, and they have been a lot of fun, you're going to get some top 25 wins, but they're 4-12, and they might get in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they deserve it. I don't think anybody that's 4-12. I don't care how good your league is. I saw plenty of Oklahoma people going defensive because, I don't know. You don't have to always carry the shield for the school. You can sometimes just admit that things that go your way aren't necessarily always. You're not always worthy of them. And I think in this case, I don't think they're worthy of a spot. Basketball folks who want to dig down deeper and show me whatever numbers say that they deserve it, fine, whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. It just goes to show me, though, that expanding the tournament's a terrible effing idea. So now we're going to get more teams that are well below 500 that are tournament teams now. Oh, sign me up. I can't wait to watch that. I mean, I think the expansion of the tournament, when you've got a 4-12 conference team already in the tournament as is, doesn't really need more parties involved. But I also know it's not really about that, is it? It's about the money. So that's why there'll be more eventually. But yeah, that was surprising for me to see that. And then again, you have plenty of the kind of straw man. Well, they played North Carolina's schedule. Well, they didn't though. But they didn't play North Carolina's schedule. So what about? Like, I hate the what about crap. What if they didn't, though? They played the SEC schedule, and they're 8 games under 500 in the league. Why are they deserving of a spot in the tournament to play for a national title? And I'm a fan, so I'm saying that. But I'm also more realistic than a lot of social media. So, yeah, that's weird to me, and it really just screams like no expansion for the tournament. But there's a lot of support for it, so we'll see.
They did beat Arizona earlier in the year when Arizona was ranked.
As we'll get into quad wins and all that jazz that explain why. And I get that, but it's just like, come on, man.
Michigan, who's a team that's been competing for the Big Ten championship. And they have 11 teams in the Big Ten right now. And again, when you think about expansion, 32 of the 64 teams that would be in, based on Joe Lunardi, are from the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12. Don't think for a minute that any extra 4, 8, or 12 teams are going to be like schools, with all due respect, because some of these schools are good this year.
The Drakes of the Big Sky.
Yeah.
No, they're not doing that. That's what bothers me about it when they're talking about expansion. They're not even getting it completely right now.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I get that you've played a harder schedule than others because of how many teams that are ranked, but still, 4-12.
And the thing is
there was
that
a time when a conference to get in the tournament, and this is not get off my lawn. I have nothing against Oklahoma, but there was a time that you really almost had to be 500 or better in your conference to be considered, no matter who you'd beaten or lost to get in the tournament. Finish 500 in your conference. That's going to be harder now because of expansion. But 4-12, they're over 500, 17-12 in the year. So Baylor beats Oklahoma State Saturday night at home. They end up winning by 10. I got to tell you, if they would have lost Saturday night, with all due respect to Scott Drew, they don't deserve to get in. But they did win that game. They still have 2 to go. We'll see what happens with that. But, I mean, I'm not into 16-12 or whatever. Now, I forgot the year that Villanova and Rolly Massimino won it, like in 1985, and upset Georgetown, what their record was. But they found a way to get in, and then they won it. But 4-12 in the conference, I need more. I need more than that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
All right, when we come back, Shireen Williams, she will join us. Pro Football Talk. She does a great job, and she was at the Combine. Players that stood out, some of the more interesting stories in her opinion, that and more, and whatever else NFL news and notes that she has. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. It's a new month, and they will have new incentives, new offers on various great cars, trucks, and SUVs on their lot, including, of course, Ram. They just came off of Ram Truck Month, and I even told Ted, you could do that every month. Have whatever incentives Ram puts out there. They have 7 times won Motor Trend's Truck of the Year. The Jeep Wagoneer, the various model series Wagoneer, a phenomenal SUV. The Grand Cherokee, phenomenal SUV. And then, of course, with what they have as well, when it comes to not just trucks and SUVs, but regular cars that you can get on the lot, Buick, etc. Now, Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Chrysler, not Buick, Chrysler, on Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. But remember the great prices and the amount of pre-owned cars they have available too. I bought one there in 2020, and I love it. It's a Ford Explorer, and yes, it was a pre-owned car that I love. AJ did a great job of getting me involved in that. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
.365 Sports on this Monday. So, Paul Catalina, I thought there was a cool note you sent me that after you studied that TCU Baylor women's basketball game, congratulations to TCU, the women winning their first ever Big 12 women's basketball title. Texas Tech men have won 3 straight indoor track and field titles. The women won 2. So there's a little note or two about that. And Nathaniel Ezekiel from Baylor is becoming a 400-meter, and, of course, Baylor known for 400 meters. He is a bad mo. He is having himself a great run. He came back from way behind to help win the 4x400.
Let's get him in the Olympics fast. Let's make sure that we keep that up and get him. Let's get a gold medal in America in 2028.
America,
yeah, that's right. Well, I want us to clean sweep every category. It's our home. We should clean sweep it, even in sports that we're not in. That's what I want in 2028 in the Olympics.
Who was that young lady, that real tall drink of water that was a 400-meter, 800-meter, whatever at A&M that was so dominant when she was in college? And then
I do not remember. By the way, I know that you're making fun of me about the TCU Baylor women's game, but I did watch every second of it. It was a very sloppy game. Nobody could make any shots, although it did almost go to overtime. Baylor in the fourth quarter was awful. Watching that full broadcast was worth it just for the one Kim Mulkey throwing an absolute hissy fit highlight, slamming her hands on the table and looked like she was about to cry, and doing that thing she does when she's really mad about a call was hilarious.
Well, they lost at home to Ole Miss, Paul.
Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious.
Yeah, now, the reason I brought that up was that South Carolina and Texas both go 15-1 in the SEC in women's basketball. Both won against each other at home. And you would think in this day and age of all the tiebreakers, they both go 15-1. So the next thing you would say, okay, who had the best record against who finished second or third? Well, you can't, because they beat everybody. They used a coin flip. Sankey actually on the SEC network was live in Birmingham, and South Carolina was watching on a big screen or whatever, and so was UT and whoever else, I guess, in the SEC network. They flipped a coin to decide who was the number 1 seed in the upcoming conference tournament. Isn't there a better way?
I mean, maybe not.
It's like the old days of high school football when they would pick zip codes for what, Cy-Fair, 75703, whatever it might be.
Could you imagine, like, going back after losing? Be like, I told you to pick tails.
Yeah.
You always do tails.
Yeah, well, they had a South Carolina logo.
Oh, okay.
And they had a UT logo, like probably the Longhorn or whatever.
Yeah, but there's going to be message board posted like, we suck at coin flips.
Yeah.
We've never been good at
there
them.
were some people mad at Sankey.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a little weird when he turned it over. When you flip a coin, don't you always land it in your hand and then you put it on the back of your hand? Isn't that how? Or you let it drop and hit the floor. But they decided that with the SEC. Anything with Shireen? No? Lee, we're having a day, aren't we? Okay, she's getting on right now. Okay, good. All right. Shireen Williams, by the way, has been covering the NFL for over 3 decades and a part of Pro Football Writers Association, former past president of that, too, and a writer for Pro Football Talk. She's going to join us here in just a moment on 365 Sports. And Phil Snow, if Matt Rule's keeping him from joining us, there will be discussions with him.
I just think that when, it's kind of like Thomas Edison. Like when he was making the light bulb and he had a previous engagement and he was getting close to the light bulb. Do you go in and be like, listen, you can make the light bulb tomorrow? He's like, no, I'm going to finish it now. I think that's what Phil's doing. He's in the lab looking at film, like he's about. There's a light bulb moment.
I hope
for
it's
the
a
Husker.
lab to get better athletes. And their defense wasn't bad last year; it was pretty good. Shireen Williams, Pro Football Talk, joins us on 365 Sports, and there she is. Hello, Shireen. Thank you for being on with us, Craig and Paul. David Smoak. Is there a favorite, and I know that is there a favorite story you remember the most from Combine that comes off the top of your mind?
From this year, from any year?
Well, we can do this year, and if not, we can go to any year. Or both.
I don't know if there's really anything that stands out from this year. It was a quick week, I'll say that. And just, the fact that the quarterbacks are not the quarterback class that we have seen in recent years. This is just not a good quarterback class. That's probably what stands out to me more than anything. I will say this. I think Travis Hunter, we're trying to think back, because I missed about 94 was my first combine, and I missed 3 of them for the Winter Olympics. And I think that's the only 3 I've missed. So I'm coming up on just close to 30 years of doing combines. And Travis Hunter was really now there's a lot more people that do it now than did it in 1994. But Travis Hunter was close to being the most well-attended player, non-quarterback player that I can remember, other than Manti Te'o for obvious reasons when he was coming out, and Maurice Clarett twice for obvious reason when he was coming out because he sued to come out early, and so they had to bring him to the combine, and then he lost his lawsuit, so then he came back the next year. So I would say those 2 players and Travis Hunter are probably the highest non-quarterbacks I've ever seen for the press conference. Just a ton of people around him.
So, Shireen, you mentioned the quarterbacks this year. I was kind of surprised to see. I mean, I know he did really well in the workouts, but there's a lot of buzz about Tyler Shuck all of a sudden from Louisville and Tech and Oregon, where he played all his college ball. That was great and all, but he's going to be 26 in his rookie year for a reason. He spent most of his college career not playing. He was injured. Does the part of the combine that confuses you as much as it does me, where they seem to forget about all those things?
Yeah, no question. And you see it. I mean, when Smokey was asking me the question about things I've seen at the combine, my first thought was Mike Mamula. He's a workout warrior, and it's sort of what you were talking about. Like the productivity just wasn't there, but he was so great in all the workouts that he jumped up high in the draft. The Eagles made a trade with the Buccaneers to take him, and the Bucs ended up with Warren Sapp and a Hall of Famer. And Mamula, of course, didn't last very long in the league. So completely with you. Like you've got to, based on what you see on film, their productivity, it's just like Bo Nix last year. I mean, look how many games the guy had played. You had all that tape to look at Bo Nix, and so many teams passed on him despite all the evidence that he was going to be a good NFL player. And it's turned out he's going to be a good NFL player based on the first season that we've seen. So, yeah, they've got to quit looking at the workout numbers and just look at what they see on film. And I thought one of the best drafts was that COVID draft when they didn't have that. They didn't have all this information or as much information as what they have in all these other drafts. And I thought they did, for the most part, a really good job drafting because they didn't overthink it. Just watch the film, and what you see with your eyes is what you get. And I'm a little bit, frankly, I'm an Aggie, but I'm a little bit worried about Shamar Stewart. The productivity was not there on the field. 4.5 sacks in his career, 1.5 last year. He's jumped up into probably the top 10 now with what he's done based on his workout numbers. He's been a monster, but is he going to be the same thing? I love Shamar Stewart. I hope he's not. I hope he can produce, but somebody's going to pick him in the top 10 probably, and that's going to be based on potential more than productivity of what he had in college. He's around the quarterback, but 4.5 sacks kind of scares you.
Shireen, I'll stick with quarterbacks. Shadur Sanders, obviously very buzzy. Obviously the connection to Dion, we've known about him for years now, following him all the way from Jackson State to present day. And the one headline you see about him coming out of this weekend is, there's unnamed people think he's arrogant. I don't think that's surprising if he is. I think there's times where he's talked where you could definitely see that. But what are people saying to you about Shadur, and just what's kind of the thought process around him right now?
Well, I would just say it's the whole entire quarterback class. Like I said, like they're just not rated that highly. And the scouts I've talked to don't have any quarterbacks with first round grades. And they say, if you look at the past 5 drafts of the guys drafted in the first round, even JJ McCarthy, they don't have any of these quarterbacks rated ahead of those quarterbacks from the past 5 drafts. So that tells you something right there. Arrogance, I want an arrogant quarterback. I want a quarterback who thinks he's the best quarterback out there. And I tell you what, I had never met Shadur, never talked to Shadur. I was impressed with him up on the podium talking to the media. I thought he did a great job. Did he come across as arrogant? Maybe. Or maybe it was just confidence. I don't know. And I don't really care. I don't care. It's just what goes back to what we just talked about the workout numbers. Why do you care? Like, if the guy can play, and if he can't play, he can't play. But to me, you don't even judge that. You judge what he did on the field and what you saw based on the tape. And there are some problems on the tape. There's no question about that, which is why I think he's going to go lower than most people think he should go or where he will go. If the Raiders want him, I think he's going to be there for the Raiders. And I think the Raiders probably do want him. And if they do, then I think he is going to be there for the Raiders. And if they don't, then he might fall a ways down. But it's going to be based on what he did on film and what he did what he's going to do in his pro day, more than based on people saying, he's very arrogant.
Yeah.
Frankly, the players today are much different than they have money. I mean, this has never happened before. A lot of these guys are going to make more money in college than they make in the pros, and they come in with a little bit of that entitlement. And scouts have talked a lot about that. There's a little bit of entitlement with these players now coming in NIL, and they already have millions of dollars, a lot of them, especially those who are going to be picked in the first round. So it's a different type of player we're talking about as well. So maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit, Swagger. But these NFL general managers and others, there's some that still get turned off by that, right? They're still they don't like that brazen style.
Yeah, they want you to be humble, and they want you to say thank you and glad to be here and all those things that they want to hear. And he obviously, to somebody, it's gotten out that that's not how he came across with them. But to me, that's not a problem. I don't think that's going to factor in. Who knows if that was a team that even needs a quarterback or not. I heard, one scout told me he didn't have Quinn Ewers with a draftable grade. And that's all well and good, but his team doesn't need a quarterback. So they weren't going to draft a quarterback anyway. They've got a roster of quarterbacks that are already signed. So it's easy to say that. And this may be somebody who's not in the market for a quarterback too. We don't know that, even though, they meet with everybody. That's the thing. They met with so-and-so. They meet with everybody. Even if they don't need a quarterback, usually you meet with everybody. So it could have been a team that's really not in the market for drafting a quarterback high, and maybe they're trying to, or maybe it's somebody who wants him in 15 or 20 and is putting out that word. So other teams might be, maybe he did come across that way. I mean, they do play games. There's no question about that.
Shireen, the Cowboys draft at 12. They desperately need a running back. It is highly likely that Ashton Genty will be there. And the reason I select him out of it is he is unique. He's one of those guys who doesn't come around that often, that can do a lot of things. A Barry Sanders, an Emmitt Smith, Derrick Henry, one of those kind of guys. He's that good. Are they in danger of overthinking themselves on this and picking something else, as opposed to giving Dak Prescott the star running back he so desperately needs to be effective in that offense?
Well, they made this commitment to run the ball. They've repeated it over and over and over again. If you look at their rankings, I think they were 24th in carries last year, 27th in yards, and 32nd in rushing touchdowns. They had 6 rushing touchdowns last season. They did not run the ball very much. They did not run it well. They have to get a running back in here. It is a terrible, terrible year for free agent running backs. It is a great year for running backs in the draft. And I think you can get a running back in the second or third round. But what you have to ask yourself is that running back you're going to get in the second or third round as good as Ashton Jeanty? If he is, and you feel like he can do the same things that you're going to ask Jeanty to do, then you wait until the second or third round and you probably address that receiver position if you haven't addressed it in free agency, or the offensive line position if you haven't addressed it in free agency. That's why it's kind of hard to know, because we don't know what they're going to do in free agency, if anything. But that's what they have to determine, is that second, third, fourth, fifth running back on their board. Is he going to be able to do the things that Ashton Jeanty is going to be able to do? And if he's not, I don't think you overthink it. I think you say, we're committed to running the football. We want to run the football. We want to run it more. He's the best player out there. Look at what Saquon did for the Eagles. Look at what Derrick Henry did for the Ravens. Let's go get our running back and let's commit to running the football.
Shireen, Quinn Ewers, such a unique story, because leaving high school to go to Ohio State, he doesn't do things. That was the I guess you could say a detour to eventually play at Texas. He throws such a beautiful ball. He is prone to the picks. Of course, a lot of quarterbacks are. But then all of a sudden, the thought that he mentioned, he had a torn oblique like almost all year long. Does that change him at all, where I'm not saying first round, or does he jump a little bit knowing that information?
That's a great question. He sure is tough. We know that, the way he played through that injury. And he said it happened. He came out of the Michigan game on that Monday after the Michigan game really sore, and thought it was just a strain, and it was bad. And he played through that, and then had the ankle injury, high ankle sprain, that he played through late in the year. So he estimates that he was healthy for 2 or 3 games last year and played pretty well. I think the one thing you worry about with him, if you look, I think the Texas team last year was more talented than the Texas team this year. But if you look at the number of guys they sent to the combine, the number of guys they had drafted, especially high last year, the number of guys they're going to have drafted this year, high this year, you start going, why didn't this team win a national championship? I thought that Texas team last year was the most talented team over the last 2 years, and they didn't get it done. They almost got it done, but they didn't get it done. So then you start asking, well, why didn't they get it done? Especially with the receivers that they had, and then the receivers that they had this year. And how much now did that injury play into the way that Quinn Ewers played? Those are all questions they're going to have to answer. I talked about the one scout who doesn't have a draftable grade on Quinn Ewers, but most of the scouts I've talked to, in fact, every other scout I've talked to, has Quinn in the 3rd to 4th round range. Now, we all know quarterbacks go higher than they should go, because teams, there simply aren't enough of them. And if you need a quarterback, you're desperate for a quarterback, you don't want to let it slip through and take a chance in the next round. He could go as high as the 2nd round. He's not going to be a first-round draft pick. Could go as high as the 2nd. I think he'll probably be early in that 3rd round when he goes. But it is a question that teams are going to have to answer, how much those injuries played into the season that he had and not getting it done on a really talented Texas team last year and this year.
Shireen, the Cowboys have 2 defensive linemen that need to get signed pretty quickly. Well, I guess a pass rusher and then Osa Odigizua. It seems as if they're like letting out little blips of news that they might actually get an extension done with Osa Odigizua before training camp, and that they're considering doing Micah Parsons' deal quicker. Do you think that is maybe just to placate the fans that have been mad about them for this deadlines make deals nonsense that they've been doing for so long?
Well, I went on Pro Football Talk Live last week, and we talked about, Mike Florio asked me if I thought the Cowboys, Stephen Jones saying we're going to be selectively aggressive in free agency, if they were really going to do that. And I said, I'll have to see it to believe it. Because they haven't done that, and they haven't done it in so long, since Brandon Carr was signed on the first day of free agency to a $50.1 million deal. That's the last time they were really aggressive in free agency. They don't generally get in that first phase of free agency, as we all know, the first week. They didn't do anything basically in free agency last year. Eric Kendricks and Royce Freeman in that first wave of free agency. So I'm going to have to believe it to see it. So back to your point, I'm going to have to believe it to see it. I mean, their history tells us that they wait on these deals and that Micah Parsons is going to hold out, and Osa, because they're going to tag him. They're probably not going to get a deal done by 4 p.m. tomorrow. So they're going to have to tag him. And if they tag him, then they have till July 15th to get him done, or he plays on the tag. So don't expect to see, if that happens, either one of those guys show up. And to me, that was a detriment of CD last year. Why he got off to such a slow start? Because football is unlike any other sport. You can't just work out. And I know he's working hard. It's nothing against him. He works really hard. But you can't duplicate football practice. You just can't. Being out there with your teammates and, timing with your quarterback and all those things. And I think we saw that with CD. So it's going to be the same thing with Osa and Micah. If they don't show up, now Osa would be July 15th. Once they hit that date, he can't sign a long-term deal. So he would show up for training camp. But there's a chance if they don't get Micah signed, he'll be just like CD and not show up for training camp. So I'm going to have to believe it to see it. I hope that's the case. I hope they do it very quickly, like in the next week before free agency starts, so they have money to spend in free agency, and that they go and they are selectively aggressive. And, you don't have to go out and sign the top free agents. That's not what we're talking about here. But there's guys that, are rated in that 20 to 50 range. Look at what Zach Bond did last year signing with the Eagles. What a signing that was. There's guys like that you can go get who are reasonably priced that are going to improve your team. And that's what the Cowboys need to do. So they need to get both of these deals done very quickly.
Why, in your estimation, have they become so terrified of free agency? Why did it have to be a Brandon Carr or nothing situation? Like they've not really established it's Brandon Carr or people on 1-year deals. Like there's a middle of the road that they could easily establish there that would help them out in years where they're going to need to sign 3 linebackers. I mean, they just are, just to have a functional roster. What are they so afraid of, especially given the fact that, and maybe they don't realize this based on the Brian Schottenheimer press conference, that it's been 30 years. I don't think they quite realize that it's been 30 years.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is that middle ground, and for whatever reason, they haven't used that. Is it a cash flow problem? I don't know. The guaranteed money, you have to put in escrow. They put a lot of cash in escrow for CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott over the last year when they signed those guys in August and September. And so, is it that? Is that the reason? I don't know. I don't know why they haven't, but there is that middle tier that I think would make Cowboys fans very happy, and I think it would improve the roster greatly if you just use that middle tier. If you go sign a Zach Bond, if you go sign a Mike Hilton, for instance, who's going to leave the Bengals, who's a decent corner. There's all those guys in the middle of free agency that you can sign for reasonable deals who are going to help your team. And you're right, that linebacker position, they need to go sign 3 linebackers and guys who can start, not just Eric Kendricks, but guys who can start and really play well for you. And they need to go spend money on that position. So, are they going to spend money on DeMarcus Lawrence? Is he going to come back? Are they going to re-sign him? I mean, if not, you're going to need another edge rusher. So there's a lot of things that they've got to get worked out here. But if they don't spend money in that middle range of free agency, I just think we're going to see the same thing out of the Cowboys this year that we saw last year. I don't think it's going to be any different. I think that's what you have to do if you want to improve the roster. So we're going to see just how much they want to improve that roster. You can draft great, and they have drafted fairly well over the X number of years that Will McClay's been in charge, but you can only do so much in the draft. I mean, 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks, you can't expect to come in and start for you. And if you do, you're in big trouble. So you've got to supplement that with free agency. And if you don't, which is what they didn't do last year, then you're going to be where they were last year, and that's a middle-of-the-road team.
Shireen, does Jerry ever – I've I've seen him at press conferences introducing a new head coach where he's almost all but cried about he gets it this time. I don't know if it was Wade Phillips or who it was. Does he really hear the negativity? Does it really affect him in any way?
He does hear it. He reads and sees everything for sure. I think some stuff, it depends on who it is. If he has respect for the person saying it or writing it, it means something to him. If not, then it doesn't. How much it means to him, I think it just depends on a case-by-case basis. My question is winning the number one thing for him anymore? He's made the Hall of Fame. He's made a ton of money, of generational wealth. I mean, for generations and generations and generations. They're very wealthy. That wealth is not going away. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You can't go in twice. He's gone in. He has 3 Super Bowl titles. So does winning still rank up there for him? Or does he sit back and go, I really have accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish when I bought the Cowboys? Because he was really hungry to win a Super Bowl when he brought Jimmy in, and he did it very quickly. And he won 3 very quickly. And now, like I said, it's been 30 years, and we're just not seeing that hunger, that aggressiveness, that, let's get it done now. We're not seeing that anymore. So I do have a question about, is that the number one thing for him anymore? Or is he just kind of coasting right now, going, I've accomplished every single thing I wanted to accomplish in this sport, and that's it. We are where we are. Now I'm just going to sit back and kind of rest on my laurels. That's what it appears to me. I don't know how you can say anything else, because they haven't done what it takes to win over the last 30 years.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think he plays to who he knows is listening to, and like you said, we've seen it over the years, who he respects more than others when it comes to reacting to it. Deebo Samuel to Washington for a 5th-round pick. Yes, they're going to pick up a large chunk of money. How did they get him for a 5th-round pick? Is that valuable? I know draft picks are valuable. San Francisco's still going to eat some money, right? How did that happen?
They did not eat any money, and that would have been the difference. So if they had eaten some of that money, then the draft pick would have been higher. But they chose to give the entire thing. Washington chose to take the entire thing and give up a 5th-round draft. So that's how it ended up being a 5th-round draft pick. So if San Francisco had eaten more of the money, the draft pick would have been a 4th or a 3rd or higher. Because obviously, we all know Deebo Samuel's worth more than a 5th-round draft pick. There's no question about that. Everyone would say that. Everyone agrees with that. But it all comes down to the cap cost. And how much is that going to hit our cap? And the 49ers wanted to get that out of their system, and they did that by sending him off to Washington. And Washington got a really good player, can afford to take on that cap hit. And they could redo the deal, frankly, and they probably will redo the deal. So they're in good shape. It was a great trade for Washington. There's no question about that. It was a great trade. And they're better off now than they were a few days ago. He's really good for them. And that, to me, that's the biggest problem for the Cowboys. They were already, fighting upstream against the Eagles after the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley and some of the other players that the Eagles got. Now Washington's passed you as well. So if you're looking to win the division, you've got to pass 2 teams now, not just the Eagles, but you got to pass the Commanders too. And that, to me, makes it even more difficult. And right now, today, if I'm going to pick who's going to win the division next year, we all know the team doesn't repeat. I'm looking at Washington to win that division next year. They would be my favorite right now. Now, a lot has to play out, I know. But to me, that's the big thing for the Cowboys that they have to consider is now you're behind 2 teams chasing 2 teams.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was for the longest time either Washington or New York had to chase Philadelphia and Dallas. And the fact that nobody ever repeats in that division is still mind-boggling. It's crazy. It really, really is. All right, Paul, anything else?
No. Okay, on the NFC East, how did the Giants get so bad at this all of a sudden? I mean, they used to be really good at this thing. Yeah. I mean, they used to, draft good linemen and, they made it through with Eli Manning, who threw a lot of interceptions, but they always figured it out, and now they're just kind of a mess.
I think it was the contract that they gave Daniel Jones, based on 1 year, based on the COVID year, the 2020 year, and they came back, and I think it was the 2020, it might have been 2021. It was 2021, I guess. And then they gave him the big contract, and that was a huge mistake on their part, ate up cap space, and then obviously they compounded that by picking Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley, which we now know was, fool's gold. And Daniel Jones proved not to be it, and Saquon Barkley proved to be it, going somewhere else. It's best thing for Saquon Barkley. It was not the best thing for the Giants, and now they're in rebuild mode. And that's when you don't have a quarterback, it's just really hard. And especially when you don't have a quarterback, and the quarterback draft class is what it is this year. And, they're trying to get in on Matthew Stafford, and that probably would have been their best way to win now. And that's the problem, too, with not changing a GM and a coach. So this GM and this coach have one more year. They know that. The Giants know that. Everybody knows that. They're in it to win now. They're not in it to build long-term, to win in 2026, to win in 2027. They're in it to win now. So they want to go get a veteran quarterback they can win with now, use that high pick on another position who can help them right away, and hope they can make the playoffs and build on that. But you still don't have that young quarterback to come in and develop and play for you. So then you're looking at kind of a 1 year cycle. Okay, we made got a wild card berth in 2025, but hey, now our quarterback's a year older, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or somebody else. We're going to have to be thinking about that quarterback position going forward. And yet we've got to keep winning, or we're going to lose our jobs. So that's what happens when you don't change GMs and coaches and you have the same one in there. They're looking to save their jobs. They're not looking to build down the road. And that's a really hard thing for a franchise.
Shireen, thank you very much for what you do. Appreciate your time. Great to have you on the show. Shireen Williams with us on everything NFL Combine, and a lot of news and notes on the NFL too. She is fantastic. Started in the mid-'90s, as she mentioned, about the time when the Cowboys, of course, winning 3 out of their 4 Super Bowls. And the news today about Jimmy retiring from Fox to go back to that time period too.
NFL Network should have a show. You know what? No, there is a show for this. It's called The Red Zone. And the host that they have is leaving, and then you have to get a new one. I think Shireen, because I have been in press boxes with Shireen, watching every NFL game at once. There is no one more fun to watch every NFL game with at once than Shireen.
Yeah, she's really
I'll
good.
tell you that. I am supporting her as the next host of The Red Zone. People would have fun watching, I promise you. Or just put her in there as a co-host. She's going to have a blast.
Yeah, she's really good. Very much in depth with everything and all the ins and outs of the NFL. By the way, I did have this one note. It's a high school football note locally, but he played at Clemson. His name is Chris Lancaster. He also coached at Baylor at one point, Sam Houston State, and one other school that McNeese State. He will tomorrow be recommended as the new head coach at Mart High School, which is one of the all-time winningest programs in Texas high school football history. He's at Robinson High School in Waco. He will be recommended tomorrow as the head coach at Mart and replacing the retired Kevin Hoffman. All right, when we come back, a couple more nuggets to get to. We have Paul's top 5 around the corner, and this is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, where they have a state-of-the-art imaging machine to find out what is bothering you. What is the issue with a muscle, with a ligament, and why your shoulder hurts so much? Or is it a torn rotator cuff? Is it a detached bicep? Is it something else? What's going on with your back? Why does it hurt in various places? Because of something with your vertebrae? Is your knee sore and you can't do what you used to do because you've torn the ACL, which, man, that's not good, or something else like that. Whatever the injury is that is shutting you down or hurts so much where you cannot perform the way you did before, no matter your age, Ideal MRI can find out exactly what the evidence is in their state-of-the-art imaging machine. If your doctor recommends an MRI, you can also recommend back to them, hey, you know about Ideal MRI. They do. $497 or less Every single time, the average MRI is well over $1,000. IdealMRI.com. Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners have built a great business for you, yes, for them too, but also for what you need to know. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
This Phil Snow thing. .365 Sports, we take you up until a little bit before or after, up until a little bit before or 6 o'clock. We do have 365 Sports tonight. Emery just mentioned during the commercial break that are the 4 best segments. Could be interviews, could be topics of discussion, or both. And that is tonight at 10:30 on the CW. So that's tonight, every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. All right, the chat room.
Got a couple of super chats. Retired stockbroker.
It did it again to me. It cut me off on the YouTube channel. Go ahead.
Retired stockbroker. Second super chat today. Shireen and Talk Sport. I'm sorry. This is the first time I've been on YouTube. I'm sorry. So thanks to Retired Stockbroker for both those. But since I've just been on, I can't get the other one. So
you're talking about the fan funding?
Yeah.
Eat 'em up, Cougs. He was talking about Houston's basketball team.
Okay.
And then also, second super chat of the day, Shireen would talk sports around, circles around most anybody when it comes to sports. She's an A&M girl.
Yeah.
By the way, and one of the most respected NFL writers in America. So there we are with that on the span. We appreciate the super chats. Always appreciate that. Some of the things that are in this super chat, I had a question. It was one about, Paul. They said, Paul, you could sit up until 3 o'clock in the morning talking about the Cowboys.
No, I could. You know my personality, Smokey. I'm a problem solver. I am. I mean, is that fair? I mean, if there's something in front of us that
You and I have had some confrontations, but you always are the one that wants to.
I want to solve problems.
Yeah.
I so much so it annoys my wife. Where we'll have an argument and I'll be like, okay, well, how do we fix this? And she's like, and I can tell in her face, she's like, well, let me be mad at you for an hour. And then we can talk about fixing it. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not mad anymore. I know you are. I just want to know how I can fix it. Let's put together a plan. That's how I am. So when I watch, especially teams that I'm passionate about, like the Cowboys, not put together an actionable plan, it just drives me nuts. I mean, that's how I feel. It's like I'm standing in a clear box that they can't hear me, and I'm shouting what they should do. But they're just like, what's the guy in the box saying? He knows he's just in the box, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't get to have an opinion, and that's why I could, because I think it's just my natural thing is I'm a person who likes to, ford the river in the right direction, right? And they just don't, and it drives me nuts as a fan of them.
The coin flip that we brought up earlier between South Carolina and UT women's basketball to decide the 1 and 2 seed in the SEC postseason tournament, which to me, when I saw that, I was like, what are they doing? But I'm sure the SEC network enjoyed that 30 seconds or whatever it might have been. The coin flips that I remember, this is how much things have changed in high school football. When there was one team from a district that made the playoffs, now there's four. You would have coin flips to decide sometimes who would win, who would advance into the postseason. Two coaches would get together at a local Dairy Queen or Whataburger and flip a coin. I covered a few of those in my day, maybe 4 or 5. And sometimes it might be 40 miles this way. They'd meet midway. Then, of course, not only that, it never decided games. Games were decided at one point in high school football in Texas by the score, of course. Then it was penetrations, how many times you were inside your opponent's 20-yard line. If that was even, they would go to first downs. If that was even, they would go to total yardage. And I did one game one time between Groveton and I think it was, I can't remember exactly who they were playing against, but they went all the way down to the end where a team needed a certain amount they needed penetration, they needed first downs and total yards. They got all 3 on the last drive of the game to win that game. Coin flips were mainly on now you would have where are you going to play? But you know what they do now? Mike Owens, God rest his soul, former coach at Lee High School in Tyler, was brilliant at this. He would be deciding, let's say Lee was going to play Houston or Cy Fairbanks. And they would get on the phone, the Cy Fairbanks coach, who's unbelievable, won a state title in 17, and then Lee, and he would say, pick a zip code. They would get the high school coaches directory out, which is like an orange book with all the schools in Texas, and the coach would say, Houston area, North Shore, and the coach would have to pick the zip code. And if he was wrong, even or odd, it wasn't like the exact, even or odd, and that would decide where they would then decide where they're going to play the game.
Well, I guess it's
and I think he had a racket on that because he won a lot of those.
I want, now that you can Zoom, I'm pretty sure that Whataburger and Dairy Queen's business has dropped a little bit because coaches would be like, okay, let's meet at the either Whataburger or Dairy Queen that was equidistant between the two.
Yep.
And they would drive and they would eat a cheeseburger and have a coin flip. And then, you'd have to come with, well, I want to play in Longview. Well, I would like to play at Plano. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. I remember talking to many coaches like right after, mad about their coin flip. I drove all the way up to this Whataburger. They were out of the patty melt. All they're mad about all the other things. But they have better systems now, especially with the team that wins the district getting a home game is nice. That seems to be common sense.
Yeah, they've calmed that down quite a bit. Now they're still home neutral, where you're not going to be able to play a game at home on the second round, but you want to play somewhere close to your hometown and they want to play somewhere close to theirs, and so they still kind of do that. And that was the case for a long, long time. I covered one time in Corsicana, and they were having a cup of coffee and one of those breakfast biscuits or whatever. All right, coming up, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
Escape into fitness with the Schwinn IC4 bike, providing a premium, heart-pumping indoor cycling experience that combines digital connectivity with superior Schwinn quality. The IC4's smooth, quiet ride features magnetic resistance with 100 micro-adjustable resistance levels, an intuitive resistance knob, a beautiful backlit LCD display, adjustable race-style seat, dual-link pedals with toe cages, and a pair of 3-pound dumbbells with easy-reach cradles. Place your phone or tablet on the media rack and keep them charged with the IC4's convenient USB charging station, extra-large dipped handlebars for premium grip, and dual water bottle holders for staying hydrated. The Schwinn IC4 comes with a slim, comfortable, Bluetooth-enabled heart rate armband that continuously monitors heart rate to help you stay within your target zone. But the best part about the IC4 is premium digital connectivity. Digitally immerse yourself in a world of virtual races, exotic locales, and stunning trails from around the globe. With connectivity to cycling and coaching apps like Peloton, Explore the World, and Zwift, with the Schwinn IC4 bike, you can ride with Peloton at a fraction of the price. Don't limit yourself to one digital experience. Pedal through dozens of scenic destinations, controlling your pace by speeding up or slowing down. Fitness was never meant to be put in a box, and neither were you. Escape the everyday with the Schwinn IC4 bike, your ticket to a life well lived.
If you're looking for a wheeled cooler, this is the Arctic 52-quart ultralight wheeled cooler. I hauled it on a deck, I hauled it downstairs, upstairs, grass, gravel, sandy road, mud puddles, the whole bit. And I gotta say, it is pretty darn tough. I really do like the wheels and the tow handle. It's easy to hold on to, even when full. It made it 6 full days with ice present, still keeping cool enough temperatures to keep drinks cold. This is a great cooler. And if you're looking for a new wheeled cooler that tows really nicely, this is a great option.
Life will test you. It will turn your world upside down. Again. And again. And again. The only way to hit back is to stand up. Stand up every time and say, I'm not done.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience. Plus, grab the latest Android Google Pixel at an unbeatable price. Don't miss these incredible deals. Shop now at bestbuy.com and upgrade your tech today.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Today, the NFL Combine has come to an end. And as we celebrate the Underwear Olympics in the NFL every year, let's talk about the risers at the NFL Combine, those who might have made themselves some money. Number 5, Tyler Shuck, quarterback, Louisville, Texas Tech, and Oregon. He played at all three of those places. And look, he did have a good season at Louisville last year. And he did have good stats at Texas Tech. Heck, he even showed potential at Oregon. But there's a reason that he is going to be 26 during his rookie year. And not because he played minor league baseball. It's because he was injured a lot. Now look, if you can keep Tyler Shuck healthy and upright and all those things in the NFL, he might turn into a pretty viable quarterback. But all the stuff I'm reading about Tyler Shuck seems to leave out the fact that until last year, he'd been injured every single year of his career for very long stretches. So he's either built up some durability or that's still a concern. Just something to watch out for Tyler Shuck. He can be a fantastic player at times and did have a nice year at Louisville. In fact, their offense wasn't the problem last year. It was the defense under Jeff Brom. Number 4, Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. We knew this guy was going to be a riser going in, but he tested off the charts. 40 time, jumps, all those different things. Plus, he's a big safety with good hands who makes big plays. Nick Emanwari could find his way into the top 10 or probably at lowest the top 15 now. If you need a safety, he has maybe even jumped over Malachi Starks, who, if you want to go overall production throughout their college career, Malachi Starks, more years of production, but maybe not as many stats on the stat sheet when it comes to immeasurable numbers like Nick Emanwari does. And this is what happens with a combine. I still think Malachi Stark's going to be a fantastic NFL player. And I think Nick could be a good NFL player as well. But don't let the combine fool you. Number 3, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Very, very, very good against the run. Low sack numbers, but 6'6", 285, fits most defenses, whether it's a 3-4, 3-3-5, 4-3. He can kind of run them all. You can move him across the line in different pass rush scenarios, different run stop scenarios, whatever you need to do. He's very flexible and measured out very, very, very well at the combine, only confirming what you saw on film. Sometimes the combine can make you forget about what you saw on film because of the measurables, and sometimes it confirms what you already knew. In Shamar Stewart's case, I think it confirms what they already knew. Sack numbers were low, but also he was playing on a line with Nick Scorton, who's also going to be a first-round draft pick, or very high. But Shamar Stewart worked his way definitely into at least the later part of the first round, if not a little bit higher. Number 2, Jacob Parrish. Big 12 fans unite. One of your guys is on the list. Jacob Parrish, cornerback from Kansas State. Look, he's another one. If you watched him at all, if you watch him on film, he's one of the best tackling cornerbacks you're going to see. And look, he's not a big guy. He's not, he's not imposing, but he's not afraid to stick his nose in places. And all of the clocky clocks and the jumpy jumps show that this guy can do a lot of things. He's very athletic. Plug this guy into your defense and you're going to see a lot of tackles made. He is not afraid to stop the run as a cornerback. And you put him in the slot and he can shut down a lot of people. The combine, to me, confirmed that. Always enjoyed watching Jacob Parrish play for the Wildcats. And number 1, Omarion Hampton. Now, if you watched Omarion Hampton over his 3 years at North Carolina, you would think, yeah, this guy's definitely a badass. But this is a draft that has a ton of really good running backs in it, and one of those guys is a guy named Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty is a unicorn. He is someone who comes around once in a while. Omarion Hampton might be just below him. He is big, strong, fast. You can give him the ball 30 times a game. He is that kind of Derrick Henry type. Not quite as big, but God in heaven who is. But Omarion Hampton, probably the second running back off the board, and probably now in the first round. Don't put him past the Broncos at 20. I think the Broncos at 20 could be very interesting for Omarion Hampton. They need a true alpha running back. He is that. Sean Payton loves guys like this. Saints at 20, Omarion Hampton. He doesn't get past there. And look, if Ashton Jeanty's gone, I wouldn't say no to the Cowboys taking him at 12. Although if Jeanty's gone at 12, I see them going wide receiver or cornerback, maybe over anything else, maybe even defensive end if the right guy is there. That's going to do it for this episode of the Top 5. And that means, sadly, Monday's show is over.
But guess what? There's another one coming around tomorrow. And Smokey will tell us all about it right now.
All right, Paul, thank you very much for the top 5. And tomorrow, again, he was on the College Football Playoff Committee for 3 years. Jim Grobe will join us. Also tomorrow, John McClain, of course, Hall of Fame columnist at 5:30 tomorrow. And Amanda Kristovich on what will be the latest or the update up until when we start the show on the ACC and the settlement that is on the verge of happening, Clemson and Florida State. Thank you very much, Emery Winter, Andrew Valade, Garrett Ross for helping run the mothership. Thanks to our great sponsors. We appreciate you every day, and those of you who watch us, listen to us, or both. We appreciate your time. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, have a great night. This is 365 Sports, and have a great rest of the day.